Hey, no, I'm using my iPad because I am multi-technological.
Yeah,
Well,
whatever.
thank you for that intro, Mike. That is a perfect way to start off Goddammit Zach this week.
Because you know what, I am absolutely for an older person. I'm completely and absolutely at home with technology, and
Yeah.
it's amazing how much I adapt so quickly.
Well, you're live, so good.
Yeah, don't lie.
Shut
Yeah.
your
That's
pie
right.
hole for a minute.
So,
Hello,
in other words, somebody
everybody.
has to go to the warehouse tomorrow, fix the internet. It's not. It's down. It's down. All
Oh
the
my
lights are up there.
God.
It's down.
All right.
Help me,
How do I mute this
Gary,
asshat?
David.
Uh hey everybody. This is Goddammit Zach. And as you can see, this is gonna be an absolute train wreck from moment one. This week, along with my semi-platonic life partner Zach Glazer. Thank you, Mike.
Jeez, there it is. You're
that,
getting a full show
Yeah.
tonight.
I
that
said
was
shirt.
great.
I
We're
thought
gonna
you said
All
shirtless.
right,
I thought you
I'm
said
gonna have to start
shirtless.
drinking now.
Yeah,
oh,
drink
yeah.
early. Yeah.
All of our
Jesus
guests have
Christ.
bottles this week,
Yeah,
which is
I
brought
finished
mine.
mine.
fantastic.
I emptied mine, so let's go.
Bill Barr
Let's
should
go.
be proud.
Oh
Bill
yeah.
Morris would be proud.
So
I am absolutely lubricated. Let's do
so
this.
the reason we have these three miscreants on here is if you are tuned into this show, then you already know um, Doug Rhea passed a week and a half ago,
The 18th.
It's
the
Sunday.
18th. Yeah.
Yeah, on Sunday.
Um, Doug was
Well,
the
19th technically, yeah.
Yeah.
Doug was the founder and brainchild behind North Texas RPG Con. I will give a little bit of credit to Bad Mike and Eric
Wow.
Tankar. On their show on Wednesday, they gave a very nice review of the con and Doug and gave some background. So check that out. Mike wants to start some kind of war between me and Zach and him and Eric, and I'm not taking the bait because even though they have bajillions of subscribers,
Right.
Mike is the useless dead weight of that team by far.
There
So
it is.
so it's not even worth my
Anybody can buy
time.
Chinese subscribers.
I am not gonna disagree that Eric's the talent here.
Uh,
So yeah, you could just keep going with that. I'm not gonna disagree with you.
but I wanted to have David and Mike and Gary on more to talk about the convention itself and what Doug has left for us, since there are hundreds, if not thousands, of us that owe our friendship and relationship to Doug and the North Texas RPG Con. I mean, quite literally, we would not be having this show if it wasn't for Doug, because
Right.
Zach and I wouldn't know each other, um, and we would have never put this all together. So I want to start off with David. Um, Talk a little bit about what made your dad decide, hell, I'm going to put on a game convention.
Well, a lot of people know this probably, and I'm Mike and Gary can both attest to this. But my dad, all his life, very stubborn in his way or the highway, and he just
No
he
way.
didn't like. Yeah. He just didn't like how other cons were ran. He just didn't like how they just got big and were just turned out being all about the money. You had to wait in line to just see someone. The accessibility of special guests was very low.
Yeah.
And he just wanted to have a way more intimate setting, and he couldn't find that. So when Dad can't find something that he wants, he just makes it happen himself. I mean, he's
right.
done that in many occasions. That's why he made his company. That's just how he is as a person, or how he was, and it's just that was the biggest stepping stone right there. Was just, there wasn't a con that he wanted to ascend because none of them really fit the bill that he wanted, and so he did his own, and so that was the driving force, really, to be honest. And Mike can obviously elaborate on that a little more, but
Well,
That's the main thing.
It's definitely a unique convention. I mean, when 10% of the people there are special guests from the TSR days and, everything up to current, it's ridiculous. The opportunities you have to talk to people and network, and it's amazing. It just really is.
Hey, Gary, I
Yes,
want
sir.
to know your very first reaction when Doug told you he was going to do this.
Oh my God.
So he said when the first convention, he didn't tell me what he was doing. He just said, "Hey, can you come over to the house? I've got some coolers I need to get loaded up." And so I came over there and like we're filling these big igloo coolers full of drinks and all this other stuff. I said, "What is all this for?" And he goes, "I'm putting on a convention." I said, "Okay." So I helped him get all this stuff loaded in the truck. I helped him get all the backyard stuff set up because he was gonna have people over later that weekend. And then I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, that's pretty cool." I said, "You need anything from me?" "Oh no, I just need to jump into that." I said, "Okay, cool." And I had a family camping trip already scheduled, so I went on that camping trip. Well, then the next year, he told me it was a convention. He's like, "You want to come?" I'm like, "Well, sure." So I came, and I didn't.
Why didn't you tell me before you had it?
Yeah, no.
He said, "Well, this." He goes, "This is the thing you helped me set up last year." And I'm like, "Well, then why didn't you invite me last year?"
Why couldn't I go? Can a brother get a ticket?
Whatever.
Oh man.
Gary, my brother said the same thing. He's still mad at me. Rob still at me. He goes, "Why didn't you tell me you had a gaming convention?"
Well, listen,
I'm like,
Told
"I
me it
don't
was a
know."
convention. He's like,
Drunk
"You want to come?" I'm like,
Did you
somewhere.
just tell him that
Wear a
you didn't want him to have the shirt? Get screwed because you didn't come to the first convention. So
That is-
Speedo.
Oh,
That's always a tough one. That's a tough
yeah,
I'm
Yeah.
still trying to figure out what year was the first time I showed up.
Or
Because was it 4?
The fourth one, I think.
Because
Which hotel?
I don't even remember.
that's a good way to do it.
All I remember
Year 4 was the Holiday Inn. Year 4 was the
Was-
Holiday Inn.
it was this, just weird kind of smallish hotel with this old man that looked like Santa Claus tried to hit me with a little scooter. And then I'm like, who's this fucking guy? And then we started talking about the weather. Come to find out it's Frank Menser.
Yeah.
And that is the kind of convention and the people that you meet there. I mean,
Mhm.
Tim Kask, Frank Menser,
Dave Winter, Jim Ward.
some guy named Rob Kuntz. I mean, yeah, all of these people, and Larry Elmore is there wandering around being cool as shit, and just it's amazing the people who showed up and then kept coming back. That's the fantastic part, is everybody loved it so much they just fit it in their schedules. And that's first weekend of June in Texas. Why are we doing this now? Us out of staters can't exist in that environment.
But when we planned it, Skeeter, that we had to find a spot where there was no conventions. That's the problem, is that
Yeah.
the schedule's pretty filled up. So that was a Doug thing, because I was thinking the end of May, right around Memorial Day. He said, no, we don't want to do it around a holiday. Plus, that's when everybody's graduating, which is sort of true. People do graduate the week after also. We've had some issues with that over the years. But that was mainly is that nobody had a convention this time of year. That's really why it happened.
There's
Was
a
because
reason for
nobody
that.
Yeah.
Well, and Doug's love for extremes, So
Yeah.
why not pick extreme temperatures and other extremes?
Yeah.
Well, no, because
Yeah.
extreme would have been July 10th. No,
Well, yeah, or
Right.
August 15th or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. God, I just don't. So how did Doug get people, these big names to start coming? How did he even know who to call?
he just called. So I have been to Gen Con in 2007, 2008. We've been talking about this for a while. And I said, I met these guys, because that's where I met Rob Kuntz, I met Tim Kask, and I met Frank Menser. I said, I met these guys there, and so I kind of know them a little bit. And so he's like, well, do you think they'd want to come to a con here? I said, and I was thinking, no, I don't think they would, because it's a little tiny con. But that never stopped Doug. So I was thinking just local guests, because I suggested like Steve Marsh and Janelle Jaquays and Dennis Sestair. They were all local. They're local, they're local people. And I said, and then Jason Braun, God love Jason Braun, but he was in Austin, San Antonio. These were all Texas people.
No, and there's Mike's
good
internet.
iPhone action. Yeah.
He never did anything easy. So he just tell you what, and I've said this before, Doug had no fear. No fear. He would lift up the phone and call anyone. And so he just called him up. He looked him up. He found Rob Coons and Frank Metzer and Tim Casca. Just called him up and said, "Hey, you want to come to this con I'm running? It's a, explain the con to him. It's this little con, this and that." And then, to their credit, they all said yes and said, "Yeah, that sounds fun."
And Skeeter, to the point of your question of how did he find these people, Doug has a subscription to this People Finder site. And so you can put in people's names and like cities you think they might be in, and it'll give you all the people's contact information. So so beyond
That's
just
not
being
terrifying.
fearless.
It's
A
like,
little
holy-
backstory to that, just so you kind of know, because Dad's been doing this for a long time. Okay, not particularly with RPG guys, but Dad runs a BBS. If we're going to talk old stuff here, okay, but he runs a BBS. He ran it way back in the 80s when they, were first around, and it's still up today as of right now. And he what he did is he made a website, bbsfiles.com, and it basically has all the old BBS software and the keys, so you can register still if you run a BBS. And so he used that software, that People Finder thing, right, to find these old developers of BBS programs, and he would cold call them, like you said, no fear. He would cold call them and be like, "Hey, I know you don't make this anymore. I have the key generator, so I could just do this illegally, but I want to get your permission to generate the keys, and then I'll just give them to whoever is interested." And so that, like, he's done that for years, since BBS has kind of gone downhill. So he's definitely just yet again paves his own way when he wants something done. He just figures it out. So that's how that started, and then obviously he's used that to get all the RPG guys as well. But that's where that came from.
Yeah.
So, Gary, would you say he didn't take no for an answer?
Oh my God.
Oh, Jesus.
He
got
take
Peter.
no for an answer.
So Peter Karaston, he was collecting D&D stuff back then, and the Wii Warrior stuff. He just called Peter Karaston, just cold called him out of the blue, and said, "Hey, I'd like to buy the rights to all the Wii Warrior stuff." And Peter Karaston hadn't thought about Wii Warriors in 25 years at least. And he was like, "Oh well, if you want it." So he cold calls Peter Karaston. Peter Karaston gives him all the rights to anything Wii Warriors ever published. That's how little he cared, and that's how impressed he was that Doug found him and called him up. And so that's why the first few years we published digest-sized versions of Palace of the Vampire Queen, Dwarven Glory, and Misty Isles, because he just called Peter and said, "Hey, we'd like to do reprints of them." And Peter's like, "Well, do you want the rights to everything? You just do whatever you want with them." And he's like, "Sure." And so it helped out the first 3 years of the con, because those had not seen print in quite a while before we published our digest-sized versions of those.
Well, I thought I was wired into that stuff. I'd never heard of that guy. I mean, at all. And I was like kind of collecting and paying attention since I was young. And Peter who? But
he's a character too.
Well, like David said, though, he ran his company that way. People would tell him, "Oh, you can't pay your employees that way. You can't bill your customers that way." And he's, "Yeah, you botched me." And he did.
Yeah.
He just did what he wanted.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I was saying before we went on air. Was I was going to tell the story of being up at the front desk trying to get my tickets or something organized for my games, or trying to check in or something, and I was giving Doug shit because he was doing like 5 or 6 things at once, and he was just like, "Hold on, Skeeter, hold on, I'll get to you." And I was like, "Come on, man, you got to get this going." And he finally just had enough, and he was like, "I have a gun, right?" And I was like, "All right, I'm gonna shut the fuck up. I'm going over here." But yeah,
he called Larry Elmore. So we were a little 400-person convention. And he, like I said, no fear. He just calls Larry Elmore, which nobody would think of doing unless you had a huge convention. Yeah, you want to come to our little convention. To his credit, I don't know how he sweet talked Larry into it, but I think one of the things he wanted to do, so he kind of played Larry against Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. And he said, well, I'm trying to get Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman to come too, because he knew they were all friends. And then he called Tracy Hickman and Margaret Weiss, said, I'm trying to get Larry Elmore to come.
Yeah.
So like, well, if
That's
Larry
awesome.
comes, we'll come. And then they called Larry back. Larry's like, well, if Margaret and Tracy are in, I'm in. So he got all of them to
All three of them.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
And so we had Tracy Hickman and Larry Elmore and Margaret Weiss one year, which was just nuts because
That was awesome.
we're talking a little tiny 400-person convention. But that's just the way Doug was. Doug didn't see any reason why we couldn't have people like that. He would
I was a huge Dragonlance fan too, so that was like a really good year for me. I was like, sign all these books,
please.
What was really funny was when he got, I'll tell a funny story about that. When Doug says, "Hey man, I got Larry Elmore and Tracy Hickman showing up," and I was like, "Well, who's Tracy Hickman?"
Oh.
And he was like, "Okay, it's a big deal." And I said, "Okay, cool."
Oh.
I mean, it was a big deal too because they didn't do little conventions. As a matter of fact, this was a little known story about that. Weiss and Hickman have appearance fees. So if you want them at your convention, you got to lay down some cash to get them in your hotel.
Yeah.
And they've got stuff in their contract like 5-star hotels only, blue brown M&Ms. I mean, all that shit. They got all that stuff. And they agreed to waive their fees if he just did not advertise they would be there, because that's the only way we've been fair to another convention. Say, look, we can't just appear at your convention. Just don't tell anybody we're going to show up. And that way we'll show up. And that way people won't be mad if we make them charge later on. Because part of the reason you want to get Weiss hitting at your con, obviously, so you can get more people to come to your con.
Yeah.
And Doug didn't care about that. Doug never cared about making money or getting people at the con.
No.
So he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And so people were walking in going, oh my God, that's Tracy Hickman, Margaret Weiss over there. It was not advertised, and we did not tell anybody they were going to be there. And we're like, yeah, that's right, bitches. We got those two over. Right over there.
I got threatened. He told me like 2 weeks in advance, and he called me on the phone one night because he'd always call me like at 1 a.m. Yeah, like really weird times, and he would like explain to me how he had Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, and I wasn't to tell anybody. I'm like, well, I can't remember this phone call tomorrow morning, let alone showing up, right? But I remember going there and feeling afraid that I was going to tell anybody until I got there. Hold on 1 second.
So I'll just say, you guys you'll see Dad, up till 4 a.m. at the con. That's not unique. He does that. He did that every day.
No. That's not just the con. No.
Right. Yeah. So that's why he's calling Zach at 1 a.m. because he's wide awake, still doing something. You know?
Still
So
working.
yeah.
Well, yeah, and the crazy thing about the convention is when you wander around in some of the open rooms, you see all these people, gaming all day and night. And then there's like, you look around the perimeter of some of the bigger rooms, and then there's some guy painting, and you look at it, and it's Jeff Easley painting something at the convention with like toothpaste and dryer lint and a toothbrush, just random shit. And he makes this masterpiece that then gets auctioned off at the midnight auction or the regular auction.
Regular auction.
And
Midnight auction is not classy enough.
well, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, maybe the skeleton had like dicks on it or something.
Dicks
that.
for hands. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Midnight Auction's open for business on that one. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even that, I mean, that's something that didn't start off at the first convention. That was just something that Mike decided, hey, I need to get rid of some shit from the warehouse. Let's have a stupid auction at midnight that nobody will come to. And now it's one of the biggest things there.
Well, he had to talk
Doug's
Doug
credit,
into it.
so the story about that was that's something that I always thought would be a fun idea to do, just some crazy auction there. And David and Gary can test this. Doug likes to do his things his own way. He's not quite sure if he wants to believe if you're telling him something, if that's going to work or not. And his credit, when I suggested this, he said, yeah, go ahead and do it. And I asked him years later, I said, why did you ever let me do that? Because you used to argue with me about everything. He said, because I could see you really want to do it. You're really passionate about it. And you know what? I figured if you want to do it that bad, we should do it, which was, that kind of touched me. Because like I said, he was very much, no, I don't want to do that. We're not going to do that. Like, why not? Just because I don't want to. Well, who cares? I mean, I want to do it. Well, I don't care. But the midnight auction, I was surprised how easily he gave in. He was like, yeah, that sounds great. We'll do that. And he just did it because he knew that it's something. Now, I don't think we knew it was going to turn into what it's turned into, which is the extravaganza.
Nobody could have.
But he was willing to give it a shot. He's like, yeah, no kidding. And he was the one in the second midnight auction who got these serving girls to dress up in lingerie and come surprise me. So he had a soft spot.
I was part of that
auction. He was always laughing. If you saw him at the midnight auction, he was always sitting up there and he'd be laughing the entire time.
Oh,
he
yeah.
had a ball at the auction. And, I mean, he really enjoyed it. So that was something that he liked too. But yeah, he I was shocked because he was usually pretty strict about what he considered con worthy and what he didn't consider con worthy.
Well, I'm curious about Gary and David both about what was your first thoughts when you heard that there's going to be something happening at midnight?
Well, you mean like Dad's tea time? That's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, I didn't think anything about the time. Doug just told me, he says, you need to come watch this. It's going to be funny. I didn't really think much. The time was nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
it was and he was right. It was fun.
There's some good stuff, and we have already, been talking about some new stuff we're bringing in for next year.
Oh, boy.
So,
Yes.
Yeah, we got a couple of good things we think that might be coming up. So
we have a top secret thing that's coming up. It's going to be.
Is there a new devil?
hilarious.
If there's a new devil, I'm in.
Let's just say pasties. They got
yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Is that what Mike's
Okay.
gonna wear now? Great.
Yeah.
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 Hey,
So,
you have to pay. You have to pay to keep them on. That's the deal.
Yeah.
Oh wait,
so
I think Jason Braun already wore pasties 1 year, so never mind. No, we can't do that.
yeah, it better be on Mike since my wife is one of the Devilettes. I have something to say about that.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
we got you. Yeah.
Oh no,
Your
no,
wife's
no.
too
Mike.
classy. She's too classy for that. The Devilettes are far too classy to allow
Okay, I
something
was gonna
like
say,
that.
my wife's classy too.
Just so we're clear,
Although they
just
just
so
dress
we're
up like
clear, the
Disney.
Devilettes are way too classy to be there in the first place. But I don't know about,
Well, they did dress up like Disney princesses 1 year, so they're they're a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. We should move on.
Yeah.
probably a good idea.
Yeah. So yeah, you guys are talking about new things for the convention, so we're definitely gonna have 2022 North Texas Con.
And 2023,
question.
2024.
We're gonna go as
2025.
long as we can. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's been a concern on people's minds that,
Well,
what's
I
gonna
got
happen
I got a
with
message. I got a message from Dennis Astaire, and he sent me a message and said, now that Doug has passed, are the special. I'm sure this. He worded, I'm sure the special guest rules are going to change. Blah, blah, blah. And I sent him a message back in all caps. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We are going to continue to carry on the convention as close to the way it has always been done as possible. We are grateful for anybody that wants to help, with donations or whatever. But we can make this happen regardless. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And we may change some little things. Mike, can I tell the story about the shirts?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Of course you
at
can.
the-
I give you the authority to say anything you want. You don't have to ask permission
So,
from Mike. Fuck
at
that
the,
guy.
At the funeral, we were at the hotel, and the stewards were gracious enough to come. And we were sitting in the lobby talking to them. And we were talking about, they were asking the same thing. Is the convention going to go on? I said, absolutely. I'll figure out a way to make it happen. No matter what. And I said, we're going to make a few changes though. It's, little things, nothing major. The things with the special guests are going to stay the same. And Mike Stewart said, well, can we change the Night Valiant shirts? He goes, I've got 14 of those in my closet or whatever. And I said, and Mike and I just burst out laughing. And we're like, yes, we will make them an optional item for any night value. If you don't want your shirt, we will not get you one.
Some
So
people are
that was
tired
like-
of having 18 purple shirts in their closet and told Doug so. And Doug couldn't understand why everybody didn't want a purple shirt every
Well,
year.
and Doug made them take them. You know, it doesn't matter. Here's your shirt. You're
They
going
were
to
not
take
optional. They were just given
And-
to you.
So
And so
there's
going forward,
there's a
it.
funny
But then somebody
story
else.
about
Who was
that.
the other person, Mike, that asked about it?
John Lyle didn't want his shirt anymore at all.
Yeah, and
He
so
said,
we're like, okay, look, we're not
I
going to
don't
force
want
people
it.
to take these.
Yes.
So Jen had contacted Doug because he had those wildberry colored shirts.
Mm.
And she said, "How can I get one of those shirts?" And he told her, "You can't." I mean, this is
Oh,
this
boy.
is
Yep.
for, you know, this is
We've
for
had this discussion.
the staff and
Yeah.
all that. So come to find out, like a month later, we get this package from Texas, and it's this North Texas Con wildberry purple ash shirt that showed up, and on the back of it, it says Skeeter's Girl. So
No,
it was
that's awesome.
specifically done for Jen in that
Uh-huh.
color that she wanted, and that's the one. There's the picture floating around of Jen sitting on Doug's lap. That shirt
Yeah.
that he's wearing. She wanted me to take it from him, and I was like, "You have a much better chance than I do." Yeah, bat your eyes at him, and maybe he'll hook you up or something. But no, me, no. I have zero chance of making that happen.
You have a chance of getting a hernia at the midnight auction, though.
Yeah,
That's
that was so. That's a story
Yeah, that is
too.
a good story.
So the short version
skater.
the short version of that story is I had a hernia before the midnight auction because I was in a game and I was coughing and I dropped to my knees from that.
Mhm.
So I was all wiped out, go to the midnight auction. I'm trying to leave. Like, I don't feel good. Edwin Nagy was like, "No, you got to stay for like 5 minutes. Just the first 5 minutes." And truth be told, I was on so many painkillers because I was in so much pain. I was a wreck. I barely remember any of this. And then all of a sudden, this music comes on and the show starts. And they make me go down and sit in this chair, and somebody in a Deadpool costume comes out and gives me a lap dance, and it's crazy. And before anybody gets super sensitive about this, it was my wife, so it was 100% okay. But I had a hernia, and after the show, I go up to the hotel room and I tell Jen, I'm like, "I don't feel good. I gotta go." And
You left out the part where you picked her up.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, wait,
Yeah.
whole story.
well,
Walked
hey
up
man,
the
I was
stairs
doing the short version.
Okay, but
Well, you left
picking
out the
her
most
up and
important
throwing
part.
her over your shoulder probably didn't
Yeah.
help
No,
the hernia
that might
you
have-
already had.
That might have just set you right over the edge right
yeah,
there.
so that didn't help.
He
But
left the part out when he was stupid, didn't he? He
Yeah.
does that a lot.
yeah, I'm leaving out the stupid part. So at 3:00 in the morning, at a game convention Saturday night after the midnight auction, we're down in the lobby trying desperately to find anyone who is capable of driving at that point.
AKA somebody that's sober.
Somebody
Yeah.
that's
Is what it boils
sober.
down to.
And
Yes.
and of all people at the convention, the guy who came up and took care of me was Doug.
Gary's the one who told me about it. He's like, Skeeter's gone. Doug took him to the hospital. Like, what?
Right. And then about 30 minutes later, Jeff D had some kind of thing, and I had to drive him to the hospital.
Yeah.
You guys were saving the day for
We're
everybody.
dropping them. They're dropped like flies out here.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about that convention is it feels like when I used to play as a teenager and it was the weekend and we got to play D&D for 12 hours a day for 3
That's what
days
hernias feel like?
straight.
Yeah.
And then we had to go back to our lives. But this, I mean, I've gone to a couple of conventions now. This one is just different. the feel of it is different. It's really like you're just gaming with your friends. And the amount of games that I've run for the same people year after year after year, I always have, 50% of the table is people I know. And for me, that is awesome because my memory is shit. I can't remember anything. But it's a great combination of people who want to be there, want to play together with some new people, and it's just there's nothing else like it.
It's uniquely welcoming for being a convention that's that small. Usually they become insular, but I think one of the great things is between the three of you guys that are going to make sure it's the same. It's a big deal because there's nothing like it, and there's nothing. It was only the second one I went to at the time. Like, well, this is kind of cool. I like it. After going to more and coming back to it, I'm like, this is the only one I really want to go to right away. I mean, now I've been to a lot and I know the people and I have a good time, but none of them was like instantly like, here, you want some, you want to come to lunch? Like, what?
Yeah.
I guess, okay, am I paying?
The special guest lunch thing is insane. It's like,
No,
hey,
it's like it's a who's who.
Yeah, here's all these people that
And then
wrote
who's
the
me,
books
right?
that make us wanted to play this game for 40 something years. Oh yeah, you can go have lunch with them.
Yeah.
It's like, what? What are you
And
saying?
you don't have to buy a VIP ticket. You don't have to buy.
Well, you just have to be standing in the right place at the right time.
Around the right time.
Right.
Exactly.
That's what I was doing. I was standing around. All of a sudden, get in the car. Hi, I'm Jim Warren. Hi, I'm Steve Winter. Hi, I'm dead. I didn't know what to do.
Oh my God! At the hotel before the one we're at now, the one that has the cool atrium that I like.
That was the Marriott one before.
Marriott.
Yeah.
Westin.
Not the
Marriott.
hotel we have now, which I will go
Westin.
on at length about in not good tones.
All right. Well, listen.
We're-
That can't change at the moment because the contract's already done for next year.
We have a contract.
Perfectly
Doug
fine.
had the contract out, a year ahead of time, easily.
Perfectly
Sometimes even
fine. I totally understand how business is. This is not the best hotel.
Well, the
We're
other thing
going
too
to
is,
give them one more chance. They have another chance next year because that's the last year of our contract. But
and
if
we're going
things
to try
don't
to
change. We'll look
we're going
around.
to try to have some conversations with them too
Sure.
prior to convention about problems from last year. But
Yeah, like maybe they should hire some staff.
well, correct, yeah.
They shouldn't double book space, but we won't talk about
Oh
that.
yeah.
Oh,
No, Lord,
yeah.
don't do that.
That was not a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got us a credit for that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, there's something.
Well, credits by staff.
No,
Is this a
Thank
video
you.
game? Can we hack this?
yeah, no kidding. Hey, I convinced them. I've got a little bit of pull with the manager this next year because I told him if he would keep the bar open, he would make money, and I was almost dead on exactly what I estimated. So
Yeah, awesome. Honestly, this year with there being the pandemic and everybody being super cautious about it, and the people who were coming in from out of state and were nervous about virus and how Texas was handling things and any other concerns, I have to say you guys ran a fucking awesome convention. There were
Thank you.
there were no stub toes. There were no, oh shit, we got to scramble. And I mean, I know David brought up the whole double booking thing, and I know that was a fiasco because I watched it happen.
yeah,
But other than that, really, you guys did a pretty damn seamless job of taking everything over and making it run.
but Skeeter,
It
I want to
was
say
so
something about the people at the con. When we had the double booking thing, the con goers were very gracious, and like I said, hey, can we put you in a boardroom? Well, heck yes, and they just picked up and left.
Yep.
And so it's not just that it was seamless. We have really good attendees, really good people who hey, I'm really sorry about this. Can y'all move? And I mean, I didn't get that out of my mouth, and they were backing up. And so that helps a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it's this year was the first year that I got to bring my kids to a convention. And I'm very happy it was this one. Everybody was very accommodating, made them feel safe. They could talk to people if they needed anything. There were a dozen people who would jump in and help them. My son came up to me and he said, I was asking him, hey, have you guys eaten today? Because I haven't seen you because I've been busy. And first words out of his mouth were, yeah, some guy I met in the hallway gave me pizza. And I was like, what the fuck are you telling me? Come to find out it was Jim Kitchen. So cool. Everything's fine. But there are not a lot of places I can take my kids where it's cool that they're eating pizza from some dude they meet in the hallway.
Well, Skeeter, the boys, my kids grew up at the convention.
Yeah.
And my wife used to ask me all the time, well, do you watch them? And I'm talking about when they were 7, 8, and 9, young. And she would say, back when we were at the Marriott, she would say, well, you're doing this, that, and the other. Who's watching them? I said, there's 300 people watching those boys. They can't do anything that I don't hear about on the radio or my cell phone within 10 minutes of it happening.
Exactly. Well, and that's one of the things. Bill Barsh is in the chat talking about, Pacesetter's history at North Texas, and Ben, who is now a wheel in the industry. He grew up at the convention. There was a picture Casey Christopherson showed of Ainsley, who's now 18. I remember when she was like 8 at the convention, just doodling on the floor, and now she's an artist and she's doing all this stuff. So all of these kids makes me
Oh yeah.
I mean, Jillian and John have been, but they're very convention savvy from a lot of different ones as well. But all of these kids that have grown up at this convention, it just makes it that much better and that much more of a family environment.
Well, the first con, my grandson Jake was 4. And if you saw him this year, he's 17, and he was running my booth. He ran my booth the whole time, so I could do stuff. I mean, it's great. I mean, and he's just grown up. That's all he's known is Papa runs this convention every June, and since he was a kid, he wanted to be part of it because he wanted to sell stuff.
I got a cop to it.
The coolest thing ever.
I turned in Gary's kids one time to Gary. I admit it.
Yes, he did.
I did.
Yes, he did. And it was funny because he said, hey, they were doing X, Y, and Z. And I said, well, did you stop it? And he said, well, no. And I said, well, next time, just stop it. I mean,
God, Zach, you fucking narc.
No kidding.
I knew he wouldn't approve, and I felt obligated to tell my friend Gary that he's going to get in trouble at home if his kids get in trouble.
Hey,
I'm trying to save him.
Next time they're up to no good, you send them my way. I'll straighten all this out.
I think they're past that stage. There's the age now that's no good. The police show up.
No kidding.
It's a different kind of thing.
Oh boy. So, Gary,
yes.
what is one of your favorite memories of North Texas Con over the whole run? Yeah, now I'm going to start putting everybody on the spot. David, you're up next, so you better start thinking.
Yeah, at least I get some time at least.
And David is disqualified from pointing over his shoulder at that fucking statue. I can still see it. Yeah, no, you don't get to point that out.
All right.
Well, okay. One of my favorites was, and this goes right along with Doug. He's going to do things his way. Was actually I have 2, but the first one was when Doug was doing the Gladiator tournament 3 or 4 years ago, and Mason got into the finals with him, and he ended up killing Mason. And then Rob put on the big show in the award ceremony, and everybody was booing Doug for killing Mason. And Doug was like, I'm not going to let him win. He's got to beat me. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's very Yeah, hey, if you win, you win, but I ain't gonna give it to you.
That's exactly what he. Yeah. You got to beat me to take. No.
You got to earn those stripes.
That's right.
All right, David, talk about your statue.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I can't talk about that yet. I got to win a second one because Dad won two, and I also have to still get first place in Circus Maximus. So I got a long ways to go. Okay, so you know we got to wait on that, on the statue bragging. I just put it here, just in case anybody wanted to see it who didn't have one.
Just to intimidate the rest of us. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I got it. It's cool. It's cool. Fine.
There's a lot of stuff at the convention I really enjoyed. To be honest, with Dad running it, there's a lot of perks. It's local, and a lot of my friends get to go. So I get a lot of enjoyment of just hanging out with people I know, and obviously have made a lot of friends while we were there as well. One of my favorite memories is probably towards the beginning of the con. Con years, I guess. I like kind of what you were saying. I had like a Pathfinder game. I know it's not old school, but I had a Pathfinder game, and I started it in the first year. And I actually think it was the second year when Jim Johnson and his son came out. I had his son in my game, and the fact that they came to the funeral on Saturday, and his son walked up and gave me this bottle that I'm drinking from right now, this vodka, and was just like, man, I remember you, and I loved your games, and just like moments like that, right?
Yeah.
Where you've met somebody and you've now known them for 10 plus years, and just like you still have a connection. You don't see them all the time. You see them once a year. That's kind of the coolest part. I'm a real people person, so I really like connecting with the people and like having a connection like that. It's just cool, it goes along with your kids growing up in the con too. He was a kid and he grew up, and so it's just cool to have moments like that. It's just those moments where you met somebody, and like some people, like for example, like Dennis and Melissa Pipes. I don't really play any games with them anymore, but I say hi to them. We hang, we know each other, and it's cool to see them every year. And we're just making those connections is just the biggest thing for me. It's awesome. So that's probably my favorite part of the con. It's just hanging out with all those people. And it's small enough to know everybody too. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
And there's so many people that I would have never had a chance to meet except for the con.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was kind of why I wanted to talk about this in the first half of this show. Is the convention is going to go on. The lights are going to be a little dimmer, but we have an extended family because of your dad, David.
Sure.
That's really. And as much as I love to give Mike shit all the time, and he gives it back frequently, not as good, but frequently. We see each other at other cons all over the country, and he's like a big, slower, sillier older brother.
Mm-hmm.
And like same thing with Zach. I mean,
Zach
is just a littler brother.
You didn't ask my favorite moment at the con. What the hell?
Nobody gives a shit about you.
I'm waiting to tell this story, and then I'm here wah 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 wah, and they're like, okay.
I'm just trying to get Gary to crack up. He was so nervous about being on the show.
I was.
All right, Mike. Jesus, you don't have your own show.
This
piece of shit.
So. The first convention was in La Quinta. Was in a little La Quinta. We almost didn't have it. Doug calls me in February, says, "Are we going to do this thing or not?" I'm like, "I guess." So we had 55 people there. Once it was fun, and Doug didn't charge anybody. He just paid for the whole thing. Everybody was there free. And so we always had this deal. As the year went on, we said, we're going to have the 10th anniversary show we're going to go back. We're going to have Return to La Quinta. And then we're going to go back to this tiny room that could fit 3 tables and 1 table in a closet.
In the
and
closet,
we're going to run games again. And we had that plan though since year 2. And then year 10 rolls around, and sure enough, we rented the room at La Quinta. We got a bus, and we drove over there, and we ran games over there with the same guys that ran games there 10 years ago. And
I went over there for that.
Yep, we had a catered lunch, and there was just a point there when people were running games, and Doug and I just looked at each other and we just smiled like, this was it. But we said we were going to do this. We did it. It's 10 years. We always said we're going to return to La Quinta. We did return to La Quinta, and here we are. We got, now we're in a bigger hotel. We have 500 people, but this is where it all began. And it was just kind of a cool moment where we're just kind of smiling at each other, just like, this is so cool, where we ended up 10 years later. But that's probably my favorite memory, just because we had planned that for so long, because we knew it was, we had always said, Doug's thing was, we're going to do this for at least 10 years. And then we'll figure out if we want to do it another 10 years. And we did it 10 years. We said, yeah, we're going to do it another 10 years. We had a lot of fun. It was great.
Well, I'm going to tell my story because Skeeter won't ask me, but it's a good one.
Man, I've just lost control. I've lost the reins here.
This is not your show anymore.
No, it's not my show to start.
My name's in the title. No.
So hell. No, he's not going to ask.
No, so I go after the second year. I go to sign up for the convention, and I can't sign up. It won't let me. Well, it's because I already have a badge. I bought a staff badge without even being asked or told. That's how I found out. So I go and I'm hot to try. Like, I'm going to be the best staff guy ever because this is really nice of him. So I show up, and the first thing you do is you got to get the truck, right? And you got to get the truck. So you move it over 7 in the morning. 7:15 a.m. He turns to me, looks at me real close. Zach, go in the car, get the money, and get the gun. I'm like, all right. And I did. I got the money and I got the gun. And this is the best convention ever. Like, Gary Con was fun, but I'm sorry, no convention starts like that. That isn't going to be the most rocket convention ever.
You weren't getting money and guns to Gary. No, you weren't getting money and guns there. No way.
No, I was not. I was not getting money or guns at Gary Con.
So Zach, it's funny. I got my staff badge like the 4th year, and Doug had put security at the bottom of it.
Yeah, mine too.
And I'm like, what the hell? And he goes, you're a CHL holder. All the CHL holders have security on their badge. I'm like, great. Okay.
I remember it was probably the second year that I was at the convention with the Frogs, and I was setting up the table, and I had to go to the warehouse and get all the books because they had been shipped. So Bill is like, hey, go talk to Mike. We'll figure out how to get the books here. So I go find Mike, and he's like, yeah, we'll take the truck. We'll run over to the warehouse. We'll load everything up. I'm like, cool. I get in this truck, and first of all, I can't get in the seat of the truck because it's covered in shit and just stuff.
It was janky. Yeah, it was janky. Yeah.
It was Mike's truck, not Doug's.
We get over to the warehouse, and then I'm starting to grab boxes, and Mike immediately says, hey, man, you're going to have to lift all these. I got a bad back. I can't lift anything. And as you guys know, the Frogs do not do anything small. So like 800 boxes later.
Oh, yeah.
Mike's just standing there. Oh, patting his forehead because he's got a little dew on him because he's been standing there. I'm like melting. And then we get back, and he just leaves. And I've got this entire truck to unload, and ever since that,
Peter, we like to call that delegation of authority.
Yep, I learned my pecking order behind the scenes of the convention.
It was an asshole move, and it was done by the best asshole ever.
It was fantastic, and it was just perfect.
You fell right for it too.
Oh yeah, like just slammed right into it. Oh,
so Skeeter has to be funny here, but those trips to the warehouse, Skeeter and I bought it, had a great time. We told, because I didn't know who Skeeter was, and he didn't know who I was really. And so we got to talk and ask about stuff, and I found out about some things about him, and we talked about, so it was actually pretty cool because we actually got to share a little bit because we didn't really know each other back then, and God help me, unfortunately I know way more about him now
that led to a fateful night at Gary Con.
Mhm.
Fateful morning.
Led to some some big problems in my life. Yeah.
Yeah.
An assault. I have it on camera.
Those mornings change a man.
Oh man.
I'll show you the video, Gary. I promise.
Oh my God.
Oh God, Gary, you haven't seen that video? That is wonderful.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna sue. Where's Ty Beard? I'm gonna sue.
You know what? Show Ty the video. He's gonna love it.
Yeah, show Ty the video. See if he defends you. Look at the backstory.
I have a case, Ty. Although the problem is the guy has no money that I'm gonna sue. But other than that,
I let him in. I let the guy in to go ahead and attack you because it's better you than me. Because he wrote me a text.
Ty, I want to add
Mike
Zach to
there?
the lawsuit also. I want to add Zach to this lawsuit, please.
Oh yeah. No, and I'm sure there are going to be overly sensitive people that are going to hear this. We're talking about money and guns and drinking and assaults and stuff.
Crazy.
This is all like family reunion type shit. This is not I have actually apologized to Mike on a number of occasions for doing that when I felt weird about it, and then I stopped apologizing about it because I don't care how he feels. Yeah. Okay. So before we start letting regulars in here, does anybody else have anything they want to say about the convention? I'm happy to let all of these random stories go on for hours. This is what the convention is like. If you took the games out of it, it would be a bunch of people who enjoy each other's company for the most part, sitting around telling stories and just having a good time. That is the North Texas.
The one thing I would like to say is that this convention is a microcosm of what Doug is and stood for, because it's never made any money, and it's just Doug wanted to set up the experience that he wanted so he could have fun, and his idea of fun is watching other people have fun. I mean, seriously, that's what made him happy, was watching other people be happy, and the fact that he didn't make any money off it wasn't a concern. It was just something he just loved to do. And really, I mean, you meet so many people nowadays just do something for the love of the game. That he was absolutely that person. That this is not a money making venture. This was just about Doug having a good time.
Well, one of my favorite stories that I want to do say is a time when Doug tried to describe to me why it was Rob Kuntz flipped out. And he's like, well, Rob. That's how we described it. I'm like, Rob.
It goes to show like kind of how he was as a person. Dad's was mostly just about, like you said, he wanted everybody else to have fun. He was worried about everybody else's well-being. And so that just kind of bled into the con as well. He just wanted people to be there, to have fun and everything else. Even like in his last days, that's all he was worried about was other people, not anything to do about him. He didn't care that, he was moving on or passing. He was worried about what's going to happen to the grandkids, what's going to happen to, Linda, blah, blah, blah. And that's the same thing with the con. He just wanted to put on the con so that everyone else, like you said, had a good time. And that's what he wanted. That's how he enjoyed life. So it makes sense.
And Mike used the term host. Doug was a consummate host. Yeah. And this event was no different than him hosting like a backyard barbecue where he would, and I said this at the funeral service. Doug was the kind of guy who said, "Hey, we're gonna have some people over for a barbecue," and you think, okay, normal people you'd have 20 people over, hot dogs, hamburgers, and you're done. No, he'd have hot dogs, hamburgers, steak, sausage, pork, chicken. I mean, he'd have everything, and he'd have enough food to feed 60 people because He just wanted everybody to have the kind of food they like, and have the fun that they, the pool is open or whatever, and just have fun on their terms. And that's what the convention was too. He really wanted to be the host. This is welcome to my home. Enjoy yourself. Play these games.
Okay, so it is just about 6 o'clock, so I'm opening up the chat for some other people to say some things about Doug, and my mind is blown for the first person that I'm letting in here. So just
Oh wow.
hi, Errol.
Hello.
Hello. Ooh, that sonorous voice.
Where is my video?
It's the bottom left.
Because nobody can spell your name.
Start video.
That's
Yeah.
it.
That's you, all right.
My work here is done. Mike, you cannot hold a candle to this.
I'm blurrier than I usually am. That's all right.
It's okay. We're all drinking, so it's okay.
That's not you.
Everybody's
That's all of us.
very nice.
That's interesting. I've done a fair amount of Zoom things, and I'm seeing a lag in for some reason in this application.
That's Mike.
I've got a horrible lag too, Errol. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, there's lag. Oh well.
So Errol, give us a Doug memory or a North Texas convention memory or just anything honestly you want. I don't care.
So, let's see. The first time I went was 10 years ago, I think in 2011. And, I had my first email interactions with Doug. And he was actually came across kind of gruff, kind of brusque.
No.
In the emails. Yeah. He wouldn't let me book my flight. He insisted on booking it himself that first year. Later, he, I guess once he got to know me, he let me book my own flights. But he booked me on an early one. For me, it was like 6 o'clock, something like that, takeoff time. And for me, that was like, oh, Jesus. So I said, can you get me on a little later one? And he emailed me back. James Ward and Frank Menser are like 10 years older than you. They don't have a problem with this.
Wow.
But he was just kidding around. I think is that he did give me a later one, which was great.
I don't think he was kidding.
No, I don't.
Is Bad Mike? Are you still there? I don't see your.
Yeah,
video.
I'm here somewhere. What happened?
No video from Bad Mike
dead.
Bad Mike has a face for radio.
But then,
Ouch.
But then also I got some emails from the Three Castles Committee, which I'm pretty sure was Doug, based on sort of the timing and things. I'm not positive about that. Bad Mike, can you confirm or deny the emails I got from the Three Castles Committee was Doug? Do you know?
There were no doubt. Those are no doubt were Doug. Yes.
Those were Doug. Okay, so the interesting thing there, that was cool was, he didn't identify himself, and the emails from him as the Three Castles Committee were completely different tone. Like he was this benevolent, unnamed, mysterious. It was like he was role playing some completely different person, not identifying himself, and not identifying himself as Doug, and had a totally different demeanor. It was pretty interesting.
I am no longer Doug. I am the Three Castles.
Yeah, it was kind of cool.
Oh, that's great. That is hilarious.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Oh my God.
Now.
Okay.
It's Bill.
Hear me now.
Hey, Bill.
Hello, Bill.
What's up, buddy?
Yeah, I'm
Hey,
having
Bill.
some functional difficulties trying to get everybody in here. I didn't think this through.
Wow.
Functional
No, you didn't.
difficulties.
It's not.
Peter, you have
It's
functional
very
difficulties.
difficult.
Yeah. Not a
Arrow,
problem.
how are you, buddy? Man, I haven't seen you in a couple of years.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think 2019,
Yeah, I think so.
last in-person interactions with many fine folks at conventions. But since then, I'm kind of a chicken.
Well, I mean, I don't blame
Hello.
Kurt. It's been a shit couple of years, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, just watch out for that Kurt Gould guy when he has a pistol. That's all I can say.
Hey, folks.
That was one of the most fun games I played in with Bad Mike running the basic adventure, and Kurt was there, and he was going crazy.
Well, I brought Kurt had never shot a gun before. I brought him out to my pad, handed him a 45, and he was like putting fucking smiley faces on the target for real. So,
Hey, we were, the fact that we were that was quality control testing.
actually, guys, we were testing the thickness of Frog God books and how well they could take a bullet. And the answer was they can stop at 38, but they can't stop at 45. I can't put that on the internet, as you guys can
beef
imagine.
up those standards, Bill.
Huh?
So why do I feel like I'm on Hollywood Squares?
Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna get much crazier.
Oh my gosh, Jeff. Hey, everybody's showing up to this thing. Y'all gonna kick me out of this thing.
No.
How's it going, guys?
Hello.
Hey, man.
Wow.
Oh, damn it.
Tulanian, dude. How's it going, man?
Not bad. How about yourself?
Can't complain. I'm barbecuing some chicken.
I just did that a little while ago. I just wrapped it up.
Yeah.
All right. This isn't chef time. We're talking about North Texas.
Yeah.
Well, that had a lot to do with cooking. I mean, my first experience there was a barbecue at Doug's house. So
There you go. Yeah. That was a good time.
yeah.
One of those barbecues Gary was just talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, John, can you get me a plate or something?
That's weird. For a second, Bad Mike's fingers looked like a different part of the anatomy.
Yeah, doesn't that look like a butt?
Yeah.
Grab me a plate, so it's not chickeny.
Hey, Jim.
All right,
What's up?
Hold on.
Oh yeah,
I'm trying to resize here. We're getting more people.
Jeff and Kurt, we're able
Peter,
to
she keeps saying that about you, trying to resize, but it never seems to work.
Why does this call look like the holding tank at the county jail?
It's not.
This is one of those Texas prison shoots here.
So Arrow had a story a second ago. I'm gonna go ahead and tell one while we wait. But I quit going to conventions as Skeeter and only really Skeeter was around to know that. But I quit going to conventions because I hated them, and because they were like work, and I had to take time off getting paid. And I'm trying to work the camera here somehow. It'll never fucking work. You guys know that. Anyway, Doug.
We'll get a up view of his nose here real soon.
Yeah. No problem. Do this. So Doug calls me up because Finch told him to invite me to a convention, and I was like, "No, man, I don't do fucking conventions. I fucking hate conventions, right?" And to be fair, it's like because I'd gone to like Origins and Gen Con and stuff like that for years, and I just didn't love them. And Doug's like, "Well, why don't you like him?" And I said, "Because man, it's work for me. All I want to do is when I go to a convention is like play games." And he goes, "I'll promise you, all you have to do is play games." And I'm like, "You'll sell our books?" And he goes, "I'll sell your books." And I don't have to do anything besides play games. And he goes, "Yep." And okay, I'll and I didn't believe him, by the way. Yeah, but he was right. And that was North Texas 2. And then I went every year except so I wasn't there the first year because I wasn't invited the first year, but I wasn't there the first year, and I was there for every one of them, including all my family from number 3 on, until last year when we didn't go because we got old people who live with us. But
sure.
It was the guy got me going to conventions again, and now 70 conventions later or something since then probably. But he's missed by he was very kind to my children. He was a nice guy, and I fucking missed that dude. And we all knew it was coming, right? But it still sucks.
Yeah. And the
So-
reason you didn't have to sell books is because I had to sell them, and then Zach
No
had to sell
bullshit.
them.
Bullshit. Zach didn't work for me yet, and you didn't go to conventions yet because we still didn't go to conventions. That was 2010.
We already told the story of how I had to get Mike to go to the warehouse and get books, and then he wouldn't help me load them because his back hurts.
Hey, Bill.
My back still hurts too, by the way.
How about the year Bill got locked out of his room naked in the hotel?
Man. Yeah. I pulled the naked dude in the hallway thing. That was pretty interesting.
All right, so this is going to go totally off the rails.
I'm not 100% sure that was by accident, though, was it?
It was, man. Believe me. Guppy showed up at like 1 PM, and we started drinking scotch at like 1 PM. And all I can say is that's just a bad idea, right?
Nothing
That's a bad idea.
Don't drink a bottle of scotch at 1 PM. Anyway, so Krista puts me to bed, and we were in a suite in a corner. And the problem with corner suites is the bathrooms and the doors are opposite, right? So I get up at a blithering idiot at like 6, 7 o'clock at night, some early, right? And I got to take a leak, and I'm buck naked, and I walk out in the hallway instead of the bathroom. And I swear to God, you could see my hand go like it was like slow motion, like this, like the claw going through the door. Yeah, I was, yeah, man. And so I'm naked in the hallway at like 7 o'clock at night, right? And I was wearing curtains and shit. I stole curtains off the thing. I hid behind a Coke thing because I was trying to sneak my way over to like the house phone to call, the front desk and say, "Rescue me!"
I just love that this video is going to be a permanent part of the Goddammit Zach collection.
So wait a minute. Now, this is not a naked story, but I do have a Doug story.
No. I was rescued. And I made my hide and shadows rolls. I didn't get busted by like anybody. I didn't get in trouble. My wife eventually, Chris Haskins and Kevin Walker found me and put clothes on me, and then my wife put me back to bed. So I was safe. But I'll tell you, it was dicey there for like an hour, man. Well,
so this isn't a naked story, but this is a Doug story. So 3 years ago, right before COVID, Doug had been downstairs drinking and carrying on, and I went to bed at 3:30 or 3:45, and at 4:30. I heard somebody banging on my door. And so I was slow to get up, and I go and get dressed. I open the door, and Doug is 4 doors down, sitting on the floor, leaned up against the door like this, asleep. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? I'm sleeping. I said, I know that.
I'm sleeping. What do you think I'm doing? I'm sleeping.
He said, where's your room? It's around here somewhere. Not
for a while.
Oh,
telling me to sleep.
Okay,
You're good.
So I want to get Kurt to talk a little bit about being the focus at the midnight auction.
Well, which one of us hasn't been the focus at the midnight auction?
Well, I will say that I think both you and I thought that someone else was the focus for at least a moment.
Yeah.
Because they pulled a little, I believe, intentional trick there with the
it was a swerve.
This Deadpool backpack comes out.
Misdirection,
like,
baby. That's what we do.
Okay. We know what's going on here. And then suddenly certain items of a certain company started coming out, and I was like, uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Who could that be from?
What is happening?
Well, I mean, you guys got to figure they fucked with me and Zach for like a decade, and Skeeter gets always fucked with every year. So, there's that.
Well, but what truly was the powerful moment was when somehow they got a hold of my diary and they just started reading, and it went on and on. all my thoughts.
That's what you get for sharing a hotel room.
And honestly, man, that's when you're supposed to spend $500 on charity, dude.
We found your idea book that you left behind all those years. You're
You know, and fortunately, people came up later and.
Oh, Mike, David,
So
you're
to
gonna
kick
have to
Mike
go
out.
over and start holding Mike's hand.
I'm too far away to drive to the warehouse right now.
Right.
I've had too many of these to drive to
I'll
the
give you
warehouse.
500. Yep. And he said,
We
I'll
need
give
to
you
get a
$500
Ouija
to
board
start
so
reading
Doug
off.
can fix Bad Mike's connection.
No kidding.
But essentially, it was somewhat of a blackmail situation that I felt
Definitely.
I had to pay to kind of get the discussion to stop. But overall, I have to say that I have so much fun at the convention, so much fun at the midnight auction, and it was just such an honor to be even a part of that. It was incredible.
Well, welcome to the club, pal. We made Alex pay $500 for we made Alex pay $500 for charity for a box of Taco Bell tacos a couple of years ago. They've been sitting around for 4 days. Were you guys there? Were you guys there? How many of you guys remember the Jade hair thing?
Oh,
I remember that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Motherfucker didn't even show up at the auction. That's why we screwed with him the next year, because it was I did it to screw with Alex, right? And so we and Kurt knew about this, even though officially he can't ever know about this because he works for WotC. But we made these fake Jade hair covers that had like a picture of Bad Mike with some dude in his devil suit with some guy sitting on his lap in the middle of the thing.
That's going on.
And it said, I'd sell because Alex, the
Memorial
only
for a
product
different.
he was missing, the only thing he was missing in shrink wrap was Jade hair with cover, right? And so I found him one. I actually did find him that one. He ended up buying it from John Ratliff too, but late, like 4 years later. Anyway, I couldn't get him one, and he really wanted it. And so we made fake ones, and we changed like TSR to STD. And Doug was totally in on this. Doug and Mike were completely in on this. It was hilarious. So we changed like TSR to STD, and we changed. We put a picture of Bad Mike, like, I love you, Satan, in the middle of it. And it said, I'd sell my soul for a copy of Jade hair. And so we got Bill Meinhardt involved to do like to authenticate it at the midnight auction. And then Alex didn't fucking show up, right? So there were like people calling, like, they were calling the dude in Indonesia, and they were like calling, Malcolm over in England. Oh my God, there's a Jade hair with cover for sale, and people actually kind of got pissed off. Because we made because they thought they were going to be able to buy one, right? And anyway, so
everyone's surprised face.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, so late night, we might have been drinking, but late night we slipped one under Alex's door because he was training for a marathon at the time, and actually I think it was Mike, me, and might have been Doug slipped it under his door, giggling the whole time. Anyway, he wakes up at 6 a.m. and he freaks out, of course, because he's going to go jogging. He's going to go run 10 miles or something at 6 a.m. And of course, then he calls me like 30 times, because he's pissed off because he realizes it's fake after he sees, Bad Mike's big fat ass in a double seat in the middle of the thing. And I saw one of those. I saw one of the fake ones, by the way, on the Chris Henson site for like $250.
Oh, God. Please.
Yeah.
Did you get it?
Well, somebody bought it too.
I don't doubt it.
I might have some more of those. We could make some of those up, Gary and Dave.
I think we should. We should make some more.
Yeah.
Let's make some money next year.
Yeah. Because the thing is, we couldn't sell them, right? So because it would be
We gave
illegal to sell them.
We gave away, yeah.
We gave them away to everybody who showed up.
Okay,
And,
wait a minute. Doug, I've got a story about how Doug gets around the whole illegal thing. So we talked about this one time. Doug was going to start he wanted to retire and open a stand on the beach and set up a grill and basically cook out hamburgers, hot dogs, and give away margaritas. And he was like, I'm like, yeah, but if you sell the margaritas, you're going to have to deal with it. He says, no. I'm just going to sell the cups. The margaritas are free. I was like, oh, okay, well, there you go.
$10 cups, man. Free margaritas, $10 for the cup.
Exactly.
Yeah, we tried that with Ghost Tower. It didn't work.
Yeah.
Jeff Emery.
Inside joke. You didn't
Yeah,
hear
I'm
that,
here.
Kurt, by the way.
Wow.
Hey, Big Jeff, how you doing, buddy?
Hey,
Good, good.
Hey, are
I
you
just-
gonna make it to GaryCon, buddy?
Yeah.
Did you ever figure out what the fuck I owe you? I know I owe you a leather world setting, but I don't know what else.
No, it's fine. I got two used ones. I'll just use them.
I'll get you a night. I meant
Okay,
one.
we're gonna make
Skeeter,
this
turned
not
into
the
the
Bill
Webb
show. We're gonna move on.
I'll let you know.
We're gonna move on to Jeff Talanian. Jeff Talanian, tell us a North Texas story.
Well, the thing that I'd like to talk about regarding Doug is I really first got to know him before I knew anything about North Texas. I was just coming off the whole debacle of not being able to work on Castle Zaggig anymore, and I was starting my own company. And so, you know, when you're starting off on the ground floor, it's difficult. And so I ran a Kickstarter, and Doug was one of my very top tier pledgers. Okay, so at that top tier, he got to develop a small part of the campaign setting. So there's actually a mountain that he named and was, you know, that collaborated with me on, you know, it's a little bit of its origin story. And so that was fun. And then in the months following that, at one point, and I know Bad Mike, this one rubs him the wrong way. In the months following that, I needed money to start paying some of the artists who were working on my project. And so I had a stack of Castle Zaggig box sets.
Oh,
I had several hand-drawn maps that I had done for the castle project. And I decided I'm going to sell these box sets for a couple of $100 a piece. And each one of them is going to have an 8.5 by 11 piece of graph paper in it that has one of my original maps included in it. And some of them were a lot larger than 8.5 by 11. They were 4 times the size, larger castle floor plan maps. And so I had like 20 of these, and I believe, Mike, do you remember, did you get was it about 10 or 12 sets that you guys bought?
Yeah, it was, I think it was a dozen. It was an even dozen.
Yeah. So it was a dozen sets, right? And let me hand the torch over to Mike and explain what happened next.
David and Gary, have you ever seen Doug open a package before?
Oh yeah, it's like a bear going into a coop.
So he's telling me later on that he never got the maps. Like, I never got the maps, and Jeff says he sent the maps. So we later figured out what happened was Doug did his typical open the package, tore everything to pieces, and threw it all in the trash. So he threw away 12 original maps in the trash.
Oh my God.
Because if you've ever seen him open a package, it's just everything flies everywhere, and he doesn't really put anything anywhere. And so that's what we eventually figured out what happened was because Jeff had put them all in an envelope, and he probably just saw that envelope and he probably frisbeed it to the trash can. And then that was the last we ever saw of those 12 original Castles of Gig maps. And so I've been sick about that for the last decade. With the,
Tell me that doesn't sound real life, right, David?
Yeah. No, he's yeah. And it didn't bother him one bit, Mike. He didn't bother him.
I know, but he was. I was sick. Jeff and I were crying about that.
Yeah, Mike and I we're still crying about that one.
Yeah,
and Jeff and Mike, you know what? It was you guys' fault for not packing it right.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's how that would have come out. Well, y'all didn't pack the damn thing right. If it had been packed right, I'd have found it.
Jeff put it in the wrong kind of envelope.
Whatever.
Yeah. It's all Jeff's fault.
Yeah, no doubt.
If it was important, it would have been backed on both sides. It would have had, there was no way he could have discarded it because
there would have been fire tape on it or something. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh man.
So that was one of my funny stories.
I'm gonna go over the corner here and cry for 10 minutes still. Makes me sad.
Not as much as Bill Meinhardt's crying about it, but yeah, there's there's that. No, it's the other thing I had happened with Doug. It was really nice. He and his wife came out here and stayed for a week, and they did the Casa Web thing, and and behaved badly with Krista and I for almost a week. And this is about 5 years ago. And that was just really fun. I mean, like I said, the thing that I will always remember about your dad, Dave, is he was nice. He was particularly nice to my children, and he had a knack with understanding people that were particularly younger than him.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ian.
Both my kids. Jillian was really upset, and I didn't bring her in tonight because she's off at school doing like sorority shit and stuff now. But the fact that she's doing that, I mean, she started going there when she was, I don't know how old. Skeeter, how old was Jillian when you almost killed Errol?
We haven't really talked about that story, but she was
I
pretty.
don't remember being almost killed.
No, you didn't, because I was like, Errol, I know that dude. You were looking at me, trying to figure out if I was me, and Skeeter freaked out because some dude was looking at my daughter, and she was like 8, and he was very protective of her. And I was like, no, that's our friend. That was
probably a story I should have told Errol.
Wow.
Forgiveness. But I mean, go ahead.
That was like 2000. It was like 2011. He had the Skeeter threw the MMA shoulders up and started walking straight. And I was like, no, man, that's a friend of ours.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn my video.
Yeah,
off now.
wow. Errol didn't know how close he came to death from Skeeter. Wow.
Yeah, I will.
No,
What a way
this
to
is
break
not
it for him.
accurate. This is not at all accurate.
Hey, okay, I'll let you try to explain it then. Yeah.
No, I will not.
I will say
Who's next, Skeeter? Who's next, Skeeter?
We're gonna actually go back to Errol because I think
Yes.
he got clipped off in his story when we were bringing in other people. So Errol, if you wanted to talk about North Texas again, because we kind of cut
You want me
off.
to tell that story again? Not much
Sure.
of a story, but
Yes.
well, so 10 years ago was the first time I went to North Texas, and I had my initial email conversations with Doug, and I found him pretty. I hadn't met him yet or anything, and the emails were fairly. Well, he seemed kind of gruff, kind of brusque.
Mhm.
I was putting it, and he wouldn't let me book my plane ticket. He wanted to book it himself, and he booked me for 6 something. And for me, that's a big deal. I don't do that. And I was like, oh God, can you give me a later flight? And he told me that that was the time that he had booked James Ward and Frank Menser, and they didn't have any problem with that. And they were 10 years older than me, so man up. But he did get me a later flight. There was no problem there. And the other thing I thought was interesting was I also got a number of emails from him. I'm pretty sure it was him as the Three Castles committee guy, and it was a completely different feel to those emails. He was like this benevolent, mysterious, unnamed person giving me the information. And I just thought it was kind of cool that he was almost role playing some kind of different.
He was trying to be very professional in his role as Three Castles committee member. He was. I can tell you exactly that's exactly what Doug was doing. He was trying to say, this is a completely legit award, and I'm going to be completely professional here.
Yeah.
So
he tried to be very impartial, and he wouldn't. Yeah, and I thought it was kind of mysterious. I had a few pretty innocent questions, and he was just like, "Well, we don't need to, worry about that. Here's your material." So it was just a completely different flavor, which I thought was kind of cool.
Oh man,
yeah.
But yeah, the other thing was I ran games there every year, and the first one they had set me up right in front of Bad Mike and Doug's control center where they kind of receive people, and that was actually a lot of fun. Doing it there, I really didn't know what to expect or anything, and that went really well. And I think it was the next year, maybe I was in a place, a much louder place, right next to Pathfinder, the Pathfinder guy and his crew, and they had a big game there. We're just right next to him. Just right next to him, elbows.
Maybe Greg Vaughn.
Whatever
Yeah,
happened?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Greg Vaughn. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was Greg Vaughn.
And oh god, they were so loud. It was incredible, and I had to scream, and at the end I was like coughing and stuff. And the next year they had set me up. I don't know if Mike and I didn't say anything, but Mike and Doug took pity on me or whatever. But thereafter, they stuck me in a isolation chamber where I didn't have to yell at other people. And I want to thank Doug and Bad Mike for doing that, because that really helped me a lot.
Awesome.
Doug was always that's one cool thing about Doug is, I think David talked about this earlier, his son, is that he was putting on the kind of convention he wanted. And Doug hated being crammed into a room where you couldn't hear. So if you ever went to go to North Texas and wonder why the tables are so spaced so far apart, and you'll have a room with just two tables in it, it's because Doug went to conventions and he could not stand it when rooms were crammed full of people. That is absolutely just something he just didn't like. He didn't like not being able to hear. And so he was always, that's one thing that we're known for. We're known for to this day, is that we space everybody out really well. And if you need a private room, you can hear each other. He'll put you in a private room. And most cons, they're there to cram as many people as they can in that con, because they're about money. They're about money and getting bodies in the seats. And Doug was never about that. He was about comfort level for people.
Experience.
And going forward, we're going to try to stick to that too.
That's why it was such a good experience. Right?
Yeah.
So I want to try and get through everybody who's on the screen right now. Next is Jim Wampler, the man in the hat.
Hey, Jim.
Hang on, had to get myself unmuted.
There you go.
I want to focus on the just enormous planetary size generosity of Doug, because my first North Texas Con was, I think, 4 in 2012, and I had just a year or two before that decided to get back into gaming. So I was before Mutant Crawl Classics. I was on the Save or Die podcast with Mike and Liz. And we weren't even talking about Gygax magazine back then. So basically just a goon, right? And I don't know who put the idea in Doug's head, but he just called me up one day and said, "We want you to come to North Texas Con." And it wasn't as a special guest. He's offered me a plane ticket and a hotel room in the luxury suite at the top of the old Marriott, and paid my way down there. And I said yes, and what can I do for you, and a bunch of that stuff. Then I show up there, and Mike and Liz and I had some plan to do a podcast from there. And I'd gone and left the power brick for my Mac laptop at home. And I said something about that in front of Doug. And the next thing I know, Doug has sent David, I think you to Best Buy to go get a power adapter for me, and just hands it to me. So just and I wasn't a special guest then. And so I just came in blind. I'm buddies with Michael Curtis, so I'm going to play in his game. And this guy right beside me is playing the halfling. I'm the spellcaster, so I need to make friends with him. And it's freaking Errol Otis, and that's how I met Errol, right? Because at North Texas Con, you could, any of these cons are special guests. You can sign up for their games, but the percentage of special guests at North Texas Con, you actually sit at a table player to player with some of your heroes. And there's just so much that came for me out of that convention. North Texas Con is where I'd met Zach at a Gary Con, but we hadn't really gotten buddied up. Well, at North Texas Con, we're outside smoking, having our I have a dream conversation. Zach's telling me, "Hey, I think maybe I want to write and publish a game." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I want to write a post-apocalyptic game. I don't quite have it going yet." And we're dreaming these dreams at North Texas Con that in later years all happened. And that was because of Doug and Mike and the rest of the crew. But Doug, I will never forget Doug just calling me up and saying, "We want you to come to the con, and here's your whole way." And I know tons of other people he's done that for that aren't, ex-DSR bigwigs or anything.
Well, yeah, I was talking with David about that earlier, and he let it slip that Doug had a program to find people. So he would stalk them on the internet and then cold call them. And it was like, yeah, that totally sounds like Doug.
Yeah, it was later on. I there was a dissonance where I had to reconcile the super generous man I'd already met and the at that time, friendly guy I had met at the con. With when I became a special guest, I would get those terse emails that Errol was talking about, and I'm just like, oh, he's in a hurry when he wrote this. I better behave myself.
No. You had become part of the inner circle, so at that point, he had gotten past that, and then he had the right to tell you exactly how it was going to be.
Can I tell the Doug story about terse emails? Because I think this is pertinent here.
Okay. Yes, please.
The greatest Doug terse email story of all time. So, Doug, if you got an email from Doug, communication was not his strong suit. He did not like emails and sending emails. So one year, we had a cutoff date for sponsorships of May 1st, or actually the last day of April. So May 1st, a science fiction game store in the area sends an email to Doug, says, "Hey, I know I'm a day late, but I would like to buy a sponsorship for your con. Is there any way that you could see fit to having me get a sponsorship?" And most people would say, "Yeah, $200, sure, yeah, day late." Doug sent him back email. He forwarded me the email. The email said, "No, too late." That was the entire email.
Awesome.
That was
awesome.
With the program.
So I had to send an email like, well, what my partner meant to say was.
What your partner meant to say was "fuck you."
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Dad
So
was
he
black and white on that stuff. Yeah,
he was the master of not really. He did not express himself well on emails, but
it seems
he was
very
a great
clear
guy.
to me.
In person, he was a great guy. He was a great guy in person, but he just did not like to talk on the phone. He did not like to do email. Didn't like that stuff.
He didn't like to talk to me on the phone.
Well, like, really, who does?
Oh,
no, seriously. He and here's what's funny. He would call me and talk to me and ask me a couple things and say, "Okay, I got to go." Okay, what's going on? I don't want to talk to you anymore. Okay, bye.
I'm done with this conversation.
I'm going to miss him. And one of the reasons I'm going to miss him is Doug and I were a tag team to keep Tim Cass's computer running, and now he's gone.
Oh my God.
Oh,
well, he's already got me on Facebook Messenger a couple times. So. Don't worry, Jim.
Yeah.
Well,
Jim.
God bless you for everything you do, because I have to drive over there.
Jim, Tim had sent Doug some emails a couple of weeks ago, and I had to respond back to him. And I said, "If you need anything on your computer, let me know, and I'll hook you up with David."
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Oh boy.
I would love to see an email chain between Doug and Tim having an argument. That would be the pinnacle of my life's viewing.
If you give me about 45 minutes, I bet I can find one.
Oh, that would be awesome. Okay. All right. We're getting off task. Let's get back to Jim, and then I'm going to move on to Jeff.
Well, I just want to say one more thing. It's another metric of his enormous generosity, because what Doug did for Tim was basically supply him and support him with a computer for I don't know how many years. And this last time was been way after he was way sick. I think about somewhere in a year ago or so.
Last year.
We finally got Tim on a Windows 10 box. And he got some sound driver issue, and I'm over there, and I have to open it up for the first time, and I see the computer that Doug gave Tim. And Doug clearly had just gone to the store and bought top shelf everything and crammed it into the box, and then just mailed it to Tim for free. Because he liked him.
Again, this is a common theme you're going to hear probably most of the night. It's, Dad just want to take care of everyone else. And so you got stuff like that. You got, people talking about their Kickstarters. He just wanted everyone else to succeed. So that's just a common theme you're going to hear probably for most people, So
I mean, in the thing I brought up in my talk or my eulogy was that was the whole thing. He was a giver. He wanted everybody around him to be happy. And his main concern was David and the grandkids and his wife, first of all, but then anybody that kind of came into his orbit, once you were in, and he was going to do whatever that's how he was.
Yeah.
Regarding Kickstarters, one time I was talking to your dad, and he told me that that he liked to support companies or small businesses that were doing their first Kickstarter, not ones that ran it as a part of their business model the way a lot of us do now. But he would look for projects that he wasn't even really necessarily interested in, and he would just want to help them to give them a little boost to their small business ventures, you know. And I thought that was awesome.
Yeah. He totally did that all the time.
There's no
Jeff,
grammar classes, Hazel.
Jeff Emery,
Yeah,
man from Canada.
I'm the guy. Yeah.
Hit us with a North Texas story.
North Texas. Well, I got quite a few stories with Doug. That's for sure. I've been there since the very first convention, right? So,
yeah.
But I remember one in particular. I can't remember which one, but Doug decided. I asked Doug, you know, I needed something to eat. Something was wrong with the hotel. He said, well, just, you know, borrow my truck, go to Sonic or something. I'm like, okay, whatever. So he says, well, but just be careful. There's a gun in it. I go, he goes, well, there's one in the center console. Oh, okay. And there's one under the seat. And I'm like, okay. And there's one in the glove box. I'm like, okay. I'm like, so it's a gun mobile then, right? He goes,
That's a
Welcome to Texas.
theme we've
Yeah.
talked about. Yeah.
So I go to Sonic and I come back, but then almost every year I saw him, he'd say, "You need to borrow the gun mobile."
That's great.
You know, because I'm in Canada, of course. I mean, it's damn near, you know, illegal to transport a gun, so it's very unusual for somebody like that.
So Jeff, he had a coat that had all these pockets that were sewn into it. The coat was made by SIG Arms, and it would carry up to 4 firearms. And he would come over to our house for events, you know, to play games with us or to have dinner. And he'd come over in the winter, he'd take his coat off and he'd hand it to me. And if somebody handed you a 35-pound weight, and it was always funny because I grabbed his coat and I goes, "Is it loaded or unloaded?" Loaded. Okay, I'll put it away where the kids can't find it. You know. So.
Yeah, got to put that in the locked closet.
Yeah,
Exactly.
when he came home, it was like those movies where they had the dude walk through the metal detector and fling out all the weapons.
Yes.
It's like the Matrix. It's like the Matrix scene. Yeah, so
It's like John Wick.
yeah.
Doug Rhea.
Yes.
Very much so.
That's
Hey,
great.
Skeeter, it's funny that you said that thing about John Wick. Because year before last, for the year right before COVID, the lady that was in charge of the convention space, what had happened was Getty had shown up and they were doing renovations and he had reserved a presidential suite and there wasn't one available.
Yeah.
And he kind of got upset about it. And the lady said, well, Doug said, I don't remember what she said. She said, Doug said, and he goes, oh, well, or so Doug got the last one. He goes, oh, well, that's okay then. And he just, and she said,
Yep.
and she said, it was like I said, John Wick said, and it was just the end of the conversation.
Yeah, that's pretty spot on. I mean, I told you about giving him shit at the front desk, and when he was done with me giving him shit, he said, "Skeeter, you know I have a gun, right?" And I'm like, "All right, peace out. I'm done. I'm gonna leave now." Ian McGarty, my man on the East Coast.
Sorry, I use this background to remind me of a Doug story because I guess everybody's telling the stories of generosity. I guess something Doug's kind of straight acting, right? Like you often couldn't tell he was joking. I'd find like he just had that straight man look. So probably it was maybe my second year at North Texas. He came up to me. I got there on Wednesday, so I'd like helped unload some stuff. Was like helping Brian move stuff, whatever. He goes, "Hey, did you do something to Mike at GaryCon?" So I'm thinking, oh no, like what like what did I do to Mike at GaryCon? But he had seen the picture of what we did to Mike's hotel room, and we put pillowcases, like broke into Mike's hotel room, and he goes, "Hey, Mike keeps losing his radio." He says, if you can get a hold of it, come tell me, and I'll immediately start paging him on the radio.
Oh, you bastards.
Yes. So, Mike, I don't know if you remember that year, but like,
I remember.
I got a hold of your radio a
hot,
couple
too.
times, and I
was not happy.
That was all Doug. And
that was all Doug.
The whole
Okay,
time,
makes
too,
sense
you'd be
now.
like,
Where's my radio? Mike
he was very
so
worried
pissed.
about what
I
Doug
was
was
so
going to
pissed.
say. He said, Doug already had to buy me another one of these. And I like, so it was good though. It was nice to see. He was like just a funny guy. Like he just
Yeah, he was a joker.
That's a picture of me cuddling with a pumpkin behind Ian there. Then there's a story behind that we won't go into.
That is Pumpkin Spice Mike.
Yeah, Doug loved that picture, by the way. Doug loved that picture with me and the pumpkins. So.
How
thank you for not going into that story. Thank you.
I think we owe you another prank on Doug.
You probably do. Mike. Yeah, you should. You should.
So Definitely. The next North Texas one, be prepared.
Yeah,
it's for Doug.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks,
Mr. Jim Kitchen.
Yeah.
We're gonna move on to you. I'm going in the order that I can see everybody, so we can let everybody say their piece, and then it's gonna be a free for all.
I want to say one thing. I want to say one thing about Jim.
I got a bunch of things to say.
Oh shit!
Jim was my hero this last con because Mike calls me. I'm down at the registration desk, and Mike calls me and goes, "Gary, I'm sick. I'm not going to be able to do the auction." And I'm like, "Mike, we already talked about this. I'm not doing this. You're going to have to get better now." And then here comes Jim walking up to the desk. "Hey, I just got through talking to Mike. I got you covered." I'm like, "Thank you."
Well, but you're leaving out a key detail, which is that Alex poisoned Mike.
Well, yeah,
like the basketball game. Yeah.
Don't sugarcoat the story, right?
It had to be. Thank you, Jim, for letting me know that too, because it makes perfect sense now.
Yeah.
So
tell me that.
I think it's hard for me to talk about North Texas, right? Because for the past 10 years, all I've heard about is North Texas, North Texas, North Texas, and really and truly, the worst part of tonight for me is the fact that the first time I ever got to North Texas was this year, and my very first show, my very first convention of any kind was a one-day show in Eastern Kentucky. And actually I met one of Jim Wampler's friends at that show who had a big setup of all the Heritage John Carter miniatures. And I still use that show. I use that show as a benchmark, right? You can ask me what shows I really like. And I can tell you that like Winter Fantasy was Gen Con with only 10% of the attendance. And it was wonderful, right? You had plenty of room to get around and see things. But North Texas is a show that I heard about from everybody. I heard about it from Bill Meinhardt. I heard about it from Jeff. I heard about it from Mark Greenberg. I kept hearing about North Texas, and it was always in the same lauded tones, right? That this was a show that was unique and was completely unlike any other. That this was a show where, transparency is king. That what we're trying to do is we're trying to put a show on for the attendees. We're not looking to make, a profit or do something with the show other than have a great show. And it's a great show. One of the first things that came up was at a time where maybe it's, I'll try to tap dance through the minefield, at a time where a lot of the old guard, the old school guard, were maybe not as popular. There was sort of a little bit of a pushback. North Texas was a show that loved everyone. North Texas was a show that if you loved Errol, if you loved Tim Kask, if you loved Frank Mincer, this was a show where they weren't just welcome, but they were applauded. They were applauded for what they had done. They were applauded for what they had contributed to the hobby. And rightly or wrongly, I think in some ways that was a bit of a focus, but the show has always been about a family, and it's a family that grows with every year. It's a family that adds people every year. It's a show that brings people in from all over. And then once you go, you think to yourself, how could I not go back to this? It's a show with a wonderfully ribald sense of humor. I've told this story now probably a half a dozen times, but I have saved a line for the auction podium. I've saved a line as an auctioneer for probably 5 or 6 years that I finally got to actually use at North Texas this year. I could never say it at Gen Con. Katie would pull me off the stage with a hook and I might never go back. It's probably not a good joke for Gary Kahn, but my God, I got to tell, I told some lame joke from the podium and got a groan from the back room. And I finally got to whip out with, oh, come on, at least it wasn't the hand job of Vecna. And the laugh was spectacular, right? And I thought to myself, this is like old home. I'm not the right person to say, I don't have that many personal stories with Doug. I knew Doug from having seen him at auctions. I had seen Doug at different shows, and it was always a sort of casual acquaintance because, you know, who was I to Doug and who was Doug to me? You know, I had known about Doug, but in passing, it's sort of hard to understand everything. But I thought a lot about this. I've thought a lot about this since this first came up, and Skeeter was kind enough to toss me a note and say, would you be interested in hopping in for a little bit? And I got to pull this up. I really thought about this. You know, one of the poems that always means something to me is Rudyard Kipling's If. You know, it's the great poem of leadership. It's the poem that really sort of speaks to all of these things. And that's what we have to recognize Doug as being. Doug was a leader first and foremost. You know, he led by example. The story about Tim, the story about Jim, your power cord, you know, his generosity knew no bounds. And one of the things that's so impressive about North Texas is it was truly funded from his heart. You know, he took a look at his collection and said, oh, what have I got? You know, let me do something real quick here in Zoom. I want to show. Where is this now?
You want
Come on.
me to actually enable screen sharing? Come on, man.
No, that's okay because really all I want to do, I was going to turn off my background here, right? But Doug was the guy who would literally turn around and look at his collection and say, I don't need that anymore. You know, that might be the difference between having somebody like Tim Kask at the show or the scooter. You know, when Tim Kask needed a scooter, Doug was willing to say, you know what, I don't need that anymore. Let's make sure we have the right scooter that Tim's going to be moving around on. That's leadership by example and leading from the front. Doug did lead from the front. And this year in particular, Doug couldn't be there. But there is no doubt in my mind that Doug was absolutely there, not only in kindred spirit, but through everything that you, Gary, and Mike, the two of you made sure that the show ran the way that Doug would have wanted it if he had been there. That's tough. It's tough in the hardest. It's tough in any given year, but it's even harder when he's not there for all the reasons that we know. Cancer's awful. Cancer's an insidious evil. I lost my dad. It'll be 3 years ago at the end of October. And it scars you, right? You can't make cancer jokes. You can't think about it the same way. And God bless him. Doug held on and Doug fought. And Doug fought with a tenacity and a stamina that few people I've ever known have ever been able to match when facing against the odds that he did. And Doug retained dignity through all of this. And when we talk about North Texas, you know, the what's the Jewish proverb that you die twice? You die when you physically die, but you die the second time when no one ever speaks your name. And let's be clear, there is no way that Doug's name is ever going to die because of what he has left behind in this tremendous legacy that is North Texas. I can't say that I can think of a man who's done more for a show with such verve. And really, it's his life in this show. It's what he was passionate about, right? We can all joke about how we go to conventions and we are overwhelmed with the smell of men enjoying themselves.
That is a succulent way to put it.
Doug spaced everything apart, right? The last thing you're going to have at North Texas is you're not going to be on top of each other. You've got breathing room. It's a show like so few others. And so I don't want to read the entire poem. I just want to read this one section. It's the last paragraph in the poem. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the forgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And which is more, you'll be a man, my son. And it is tough. David, I can't imagine what tonight is like. I can't imagine what the next few weeks will be like, or what the last few weeks have been like. But really, your father was a tremendous man. And the shadow of his passing is long upon all of us. But the memory of who he was and how many lives he's impacted, the worth of that man is far beyond measure. And tonight is absolutely a tribute to everything that he did, everything that he accomplished. And I cannot say how proud I am to have both attended the show, known him only tangentially, but to be here and say that tonight.
That was awesome, Jim. Thank you so much.
You never get invited back again, Jim. Jesus Christ. I'm just like trying to keep my eyeballs.
So that's a bar that's been set now because Rudyard Kipling has been read aloud on Goddammit, Zach. That's a pretty high bar you just
set. So I'm gonna immediately swap to the only person that could possibly follow that, Ben Barsh's hair, with its subsequent human, Ben Barsh. Ben.
Well, the subsequent human is honored to be here as well.
We have
alongside the hair.
We have talked about you already. In the earlier segment about you are one of the generation of people that actually grew up during and with this convention. So you have an entirely different perspective than all these other crusty old fogies here. So now that everybody's wiping their eyes after Jim,
I've seen Ben Barsh's name show up,
follow that.
and I never realized he was so young.
Yeah.
That's tough to follow, Jim. That was incredibly well spoken.
It was great.
Yeah, when I joined the call, I wasn't sure if I was just going to spectate or say something, but I think the one thing that has been hammered home the most is how caring Doug is. And my first North Texas was technically my second con, but I always say it was my first because my first was Gen Con and I was completely overwhelmed. I was like 1% in the tabletop gaming industry, even remotely. This was the first summer that I wasn't playing 3 sports. I was finally off and my dad took me to Gen Con and then the next year, North Texas. And I had no games to play in. Mike threw me in his game with Errol, which was pretty epic. And then I played chariot racing. And as we all know, of course, by now, I'm the greatest chariot racer to ever cross North Texas. Aside from Doug. Aside from Doug. I was getting to it. I had to bait you guys into that. Oh my God. Zach, I wiped the floor with you. Stay quiet.
Oh, man.
I'm coming in heavy. No, aside from Doug, because my first year, obviously, I'd never chariot raced before. I didn't know what I was doing. And a couple people in the room thought it'd be cool to pick on the 14-year-old in the room, which was not quite fun. I was older than that. I was like 16. And Doug dedicated his entire game to making sure that I won. Everything he did was in support of my little light chariot racing around the course. He was quite literally bribing people to do other things than whip me or shoot at me.
Okay, with real money.
Yes, with real money. I should have been more clear. It was probably one of my favorite moments in gaming ever. How much he had how much love he had shown for me. And I was just a kid. And when I came to conventions for the first time, I think it's fair to say some of the demographics are a little bit older, and sometimes I felt a little bit like an outsider. But right when I stepped foot into North Texas, that was the furthest from the truth ever. And I owe it to all of you and sitting in this call, and obviously all the viewers, that was the truth. And Doug constantly went out of his way to make me feel welcome and support me in everything I did. And that was just his character. And I've made sure to note of that and try to replicate that, obviously, in any way possible. But you set the bar high, and I don't have much else to say. I just thought that was a fun little moment. Even I didn't have, unfortunately, like 10 or 11 years of knowing Doug, since I came in a little bit later when I was able to come. But those moments that I shared with him were just unbelievable, and I'll remember him forever.
One of my best Ben Barr stories with Doug was 4 years ago, I think, or 5 years ago. They were in a chariot race together with Ben Burns, and Ben Burns was trying to come in first because he needed a first place showing. And they were in the last lap, and they were coming up on the finish line. And Ben Burns was going to win unless 3 things happened in this order. So, first of all, Ben had to go first. Then, second of all, Ben Barch had to roll a 6. And then, as he passed by, he would have to whip Doug's horses and roll another 6. And then Doug would have to roll a 6. 4 things, I'm sorry. And sure enough, all 4 things happened in exactly that order. And Ben Burns lost by 1 square, and I've never seen a man madder in my entire life.
Now, on a side note to that, go ahead.
Huh?
I was just going to say a side note to that is just another thing about Dad's character is he promised Ben Burns that he would help him win the next year. And he stuck to that promise. He could have won and he didn't. And then that's just to show you just something else that Dad was, he was true to his word as much as he could be. So, but yeah, that's a funny story.
I have to apologize. I have to go.
Yep.
But
Thank
it
you
was
so much,
a real privilege
Thank you so much for coming.
to share this with you.
Cheers.
To Doug.
We love you, man. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Errol.
And I look forward to
Good
seeing you
hear
guys
from
in
you, Errol.
person someday once again.
Yeah.
All right,
Thanks, Errol.
take care.
Right.
Have a good evening.
Take it easy, Errol.
I'll email you, Errol. I want to talk to you anyway. So thank you, Errol, for showing up. Appreciate it.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
man.
Stephen Marsh. Come
Mr.
on
Marsh.
down.
Well, is my voice coming on?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I can hear loud and
Okay.
clear.
Doing well.
My wife has finally convinced me to throw everything out. All my notes, all the books. It's like, between Gary dying and my kids dying, I just had lost, the ability to do anything. And that week, Grow Dog contacted me, and I said, okay, I'll just ship everything to you. He said, no, you ought to send it to Paul Stormberg. And then right after that, I got contacted by Bad Mike about coming to the con. And to be honest, I showed up for 3 years before I had the nerve to actually talk to Doug.
Wow.
And, I finally talked to him, and he was just warm and inviting. But coming out to the con got me where I started designing stuff again. And I've just really enjoyed it. But for North Texas, I probably wouldn't have designed another thing in the gaming industry. And I just left all the stuff I had going, off in the great beyond where it's kind of stalled out. And because of Doug, I've started doing stuff again. And, it made a big difference to me in my life and things I did. And,
Absolutely.
And I'm grateful to Bad Mike for, being patient with me.
Well, he doesn't have anything going on, so patience he should have in plenty.
True.
Hey, guys got to be careful. He may not have one of Doug's pistols, but he's got a large broadsword.
Yes.
Oh boy.
Well, I'll
It's actually
stab you. I'll
functional.
cut you.
Properly tempered and properly forged.
Yeah.
Unlike some of the other swords I gave people.
Yeah.
But and Doug made a difference to my daughters, both Rachel and Heather. And both of them were just, warmly embraced at the con, and it's made a difference to both of them in terms of their being involved in gaming and enjoying it, and just he's had a place in my family's life. And I really appreciate him even now.
I
can't
think of another convention where one of the most important parts of the convention is the pies and the jam and all the treats that the Marsh family brings to North Texas. That is every bit as big a deal as the gaming.
And even though I don't drink, this last year was the year I brought all the
oh my God. Yes, he did. Awesome.
Oh, Gary, you piped up. You're back.
I'm sorry. I got kind of emotional there for a second. I had to turn my video off.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, that was awesome. And we were like, so we were overwhelmed. It was like 6 bottles of tequila he brought. It was awesome.
I got a few in my fridge. I mean, in the freezer.
Yes, he does.
I do.
And then Steve, by the way, Steve, we did drink that.
Tequila that's limited edition and no longer available.
We drank that bottle, Steve, and it was truly horrific. It was terrible. It was stuff was really bad.
Oh, it was.
But we drank the whole bottle. We drank the whole
we did.
It was
to make sure.
It was truly awful, Steve. It really was.
Make sure that last drop wasn't the good one.
Yeah, we had to go. It was a long taste testing process.
Apple tequila.
Apple flavored tequila. There, just think about it. Apple flavored tequila.
That's fierce, man.
It was scary. But thank you. See, but
there's nothing about that sounds good.
I wanted to talk about just a second is that Doug loved the second generation of people coming. That's why he loved Ben coming, because Ben was Bill's son. He loved Steve's daughters. I mean, he just loved Heather and Rachel so much. He was so kind to my grandson Jake. He loved Jake. He just thought Jake was great. He loved Gary's sons, and he loved the younger generation getting into games and coming to the con. He was just something about him, and kids loved him too. The younger guys, the younger people loved him too. But Mike, he loved it when those guys came.
He loved all the kids came, but he also, one of the things that was really important is Doug always printed shirts and stuff for the grandkids.
Yeah.
And he really, and I will never forget, a couple of years ago, there was an auction at the normal auction, not the midnight auction. There was some pink stuff thing that came up, and you started the bidding at $5, and Doug said $100, and nobody spoke a word after that because it was for Cora, and and it was like, if you're dumb enough to speak up against that, you're gonna get shot. So everybody just stopped. He said $100, and it was it. It's sold, done, and he just and Cora ran up and grabbed it, and he just loved kids. His wife, in her statement that she wrote, was there wasn't a baby that Doug didn't love, and not a baby that didn't love Doug.
Absolutely. Okay.
I feel like we're not honoring Doug because we need more firearms, frankly.
Oh boy.
I got plenty.
Okay, hang on. If we're going to talk about firearms, I mean, I got firearms covered right here.
Easy there, cowboys. Easy there.
We got firearms.
Peter Green. Sword.
Yeah. This has now turned into the Saturday
These
Night
are
Live
all airsoft guns.
Yes.
These are all airsoft guns.
Excuse me, I want to thank you for putting this together.
Goddammit, Zach does not condone any of this that goes on. Oh, the Tancred module.
It's the only valuable one in existence.
The massively valuable one.
Until next year. Until next year.
I am just very happy that Jim Kitchen has finally made it to North Texas and instantly became a fixture at the midnight auction. So now I have a worthy adversary when we do the bidding for items that are absolute crap. However, I do have to say,
Hey, I bought some good stuff from there.
on my wall sits a very nice box, and in that box there is Szechuan sauce that I was gifted after I was outbid by a master of the craft. But no, that Jim, you came in this year. This was your first year at North Texas and fit just like all the rest of us, which I don't know if that's a compliment or not.
Welcome to the asylum.
Yeah, welcome to the family of miscreants.
Well, look forward to seeing you next year, obviously.
Oh
You either get it or you don't get it, right? And
That's
you know
right.
when somebody gets it immediately. And I knew when I talked to Jim Friday that he got it, because when I got up Saturday and I was too sick to even move, my first thought was, oh, thank God Jim Kitchens is here. He can deal with all shit because I can't move.
Well,
and he jumped in very ably. I was able to move around at least by the auction, but I still was not able to speak properly. And so Jim jumped in immediately, and that's the great thing. And guys, I mean, Kurt's another one. Kurt's the guy that got it right off the bat. And if you've ever, and I love Kurt at the midnight auction because he reacts properly whenever I auction off a counterfeit or a bootleg Watsiana. Look what he's drinking out of right now.
What's that mug you got there?
Well, so it's just you either get it or you don't get it, and these guys get it. That's the great part about it. And I told
Jim.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Jim saved us on the auction, but also too keep in mind, Jim set a new record for the auction this year too.
You mean because he might be mildly competent at the auction?
Wow.
Am I out now? I'm out.
I have an auction question for Jim.
I just got
Jim,
kicked out of the auction. Well, thanks.
Jim Kitchen, how do you feel about accepting bribes? Because there are many of us that will all gather money together for a bribe to just let us get a winning bid in edgewise over Bill.
So Bill Meinhardt doesn't win everything.
Yeah, we'll bribe you for just like 10 minutes.
I have an idea about that, and I think we can put this into play next year, right? But we have to lure Bill away with bait, and once we've lured Bill away, then we have our chance, right? Then we've got our window of opportunity.
Well, okay, so now we're just talking about a number, and it's not a dollar number. It's how many years old scotch.
No. I think I think we absolutely can do this. It's the problem with Bill is you have to have something sufficiently interesting to distract Bill. And then what we can do is we can say, oh, hey, did you see what's actually out there on the table? One of the vendors put it out. And then Bill will leave. And when Bill leaves, that's when we have our opportunity.
I don't think that's going to work.
I want to say something real quick, right? I've heard a couple of nitwits here and there over the years who have knocked North Texas, right? Who are like, oh, that's the old school, that's the OSR show, and it's all the OSR guys, and I always say the same thing. Have you ever been to the show? And there's always crickets. And then I always say, how can you talk badly about a show you've never been to? Well, I've heard. Have you seen it?
No. Well, I've heard, yeah.
Have you been there? No. Then frankly, you can go to your own backyard and back yourself off.
How eloquent.
One of the things that absolutely fascinated me about Doug, and I think Mike may have had a hand in this too, Gary, everybody, was when after the first couple of years of seeing all of the special guests at the convention, I actually got invited to be one. And I think I contacted Mike and I was like, is this a joke? Because fuck you if it is. That sucks.
It wasn't a joke.
And no, it was serious because Doug wanted, in addition to all of the TSR luminaries and the people who were, you know, so famous that I grew up reading their words, he wanted to continue pushing people and giving other people an opportunity, like Ben. You know, he desperately wanted to have us third or fourth generation of content creators. You know, he wanted to showcase those things. But in
I've never been a special guest. You're now outing me.
Yeah, I know. I did that specifically.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate that.
No,
nice.
But no, the whole thing about this was, even when I got the message from Doug about being a special guest, it was so Doug, because he said, all right, I want you to be a special guest, but I'm not paying for your flight out. I'm not paying for your hotel room. You have to get your own badge. Well, wait a minute. I might be able to get you a badge. Maybe I'll throw you some food money. And that was it.
Wow.
And I was so excited. I was like, I've made it to the middle. It's great.
The middle.
But yeah, I mean, I super appreciated that from him. And like we had talked earlier, without Doug and North Texas, there wouldn't be a Goddammit Zach. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet Zach and do this show. And by extension of that, Zach and I started doing the small publisher seminars at North Texas. And that has had more of a reach than I expected and would have ever dreamed. To yahoos who know nothing, would actually inspire other people, like Wonky. Keelan Halverson, the artist, came to North Texas because we talked it up and told him.
Oh my God. Yeah. You and me, Skeeter, just tell this 22-year-old kid from, we don't even know where, this is the con to go to.
Alaska.
You should go to.
Well, he's in Alaska
now. I think.
Yeah.
I think it was Idaho
or
something then. But he and his wife just show up blind to their first game convention ever, and it's North Texas Con, and now he's a RPG artist.
Yeah, he's totally in it. The connections with people that I've made have been how I was able to put Crypt of the Science Wizard out. You know, Liz Stewart did the layout. How would I have ever gotten hooked up with Liz Stewart except for North Texas? All of the games, running games for Frog God that without Bill, I would have never had the opportunity to run all these games for all of these just insane humans in Texas, and met hundreds, if not thousands of people over the years. It's just, this convention has been part of my life and my development, and I can never repay or thank Doug and David and Gary and Mike enough for that. And Brian, because honestly, for the first probably 5 years, I didn't know Brian's name. And I just called him, hey, dreadlock dude. And he was so happy. That's how I referred to him. It's like, I love that, man. Like, I'm sorry. But yeah, it's just,
you know, Skeeter, that was a big, when Doug and I were, you know, talking about this and just over the years when it developed, one of the things that he said was that he didn't just want to be an old school con. He also wanted to have these younger guys here. And that's when we started inviting guys like Jeff Talanian and people like Tom Wilson and all these guys, because Levi, we didn't want it just to be, because I remember one year I made a joke that I don't want to be known as Wheelchair Con, because that was the year we had Tim, Frank, and Jim, and they were all in driving wheelchairs.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't want to be Wheelchair Con. And he said, no, you're right. We need to start, maybe we start getting a little younger here. And so he was real, and David and Gary can attest to this. They know the guy longer than I did. He did not often like change, but sometimes he really surprised you. Because when I was saying, like, we need to start having younger guests, the next year also we had this huge slate of younger guests. I think that was the first year invited Jeff and a bunch of people like that. And I was like, wow, he actually listened to me for once, because he saw the same thing though. He was like, I don't want to be the octogenarian convention. I want to have people in the OSR that are, young.
Jeff, you're one of the young guys.
I know that it's funny to me. Hey, Skeeter, we're the young guys in our 50s.
Yeah, we're the new kids.
Kids nowadays. Well, he didn't want to be pigeonholed, and I think that was really cool, because he would surprise you every once in a while with something like that, where you thought that, I'm going to have to fight him over this. He's not going to want to have a bunch of the younger generation guys, but he was like, no, you're right. Yeah, we need to start having these guys, because the older guys are going to start dying off, or they can't travel anymore, because they're getting too old. So you're absolutely right. Well, let's just start getting these younger guys in. And it's been great, because we've seen we're still OSR, the con's still OSR, but it's just, a different style of OSR now, right? It's more the newer OSR stuff. So you get those young bucks like Jim Wampler in there now instead of the old guys. But
your check's in the mail.
How much?
I mean, the first couple of years that I came to North Texas was still when I was drinking. So I think for 4 years straight, every time I went over to Talanian's booth, I reintroduced myself, because I had never remembered meeting him the year before. and finally, it was like the 4th year. I said, I feel like I've done this before. And he goes, Skeeter, I've met you 3 times.
What's funny about that story, Skeeter, is so you started drinking at the con and then stopped. And I never drank at the con until about 3 or 4 years ago. And one night I was in the bar, and Mike was going to his room at like 2:30 in the morning, and Brian came around the corner at the elevator bank there and said, "Hey, Gary's in the bar drunk. You need to go check this out."
Oh my God!
I've never seen him drunk, and so he
That's
goes over there. I got to see this.
That was still awesome, by the way. It was worth the trip downstairs and missing sleep for to see Gary drunk in the bar.
I'm sorry. I think this is a good time to ask a question.
Oh,
how did
please.
Satan get his little helpers?
That's a good question. Yeah.
We actually talked about this a little bit earlier, but Mike, please.
Well, it started out that I didn't. So the first auction, I didn't have any little helpers, and then Doug decided to surprise me the second year by dressing up Jessica and her friend Alana in naughty nighties and having them come to the auction, and of course that was a huge hit. So we followed it up the next year by having Jason Braun dress up in a tutu, because obviously that was
amazing. I got a lap dance that year.
When those 2 girls came out, I thought Bad Mike's head was going to explode. Yeah. You should have seen him.
Yeah,
he was
Doug
just,
got that one.
He didn't know what was going on.
Oh, that was Doug's finest moment.
Yeah,
I did not suspect a thing.
I just want to know who we have to pay and how much to keep your brother to stop showing up in a Speedo. That's what
There's no way. At this point, you can't
So
stop.
I'm gonna set up a special fund for this. That's one of my administrative duties this year. We'll have a donation booth set up so that to keep his pants on. That's going to be kind of our.
But it's like a subathon. It's like a subathon.
It's like a telethon.
You pay for the minute. Yeah, you pay for the minute, and if you stop paying, then they come off. So you got.
There you go.
Yeah.
So,
Pick a charity that has to do with vision.
You might not remember
Take the money.
in the year 2020, nobody remembers this. Kurt paid $50 to have Robert leave because Robert came to Speedo. Kurt was remote, and Kurt sends a bid over there, $50 to have Robert leave the room.
I do remember that.
Kurt saved
Yep.
us all that year. Robert had to leave at that point. But no, the Devilettes came the year after that, or the year after Jason. I don't remember. Zach would probably even know more about that than I don't know why the gens volunteered, but I was so
Because
happy
you were
they
so
volunteered.
disorganized. She said she was willing to dress any way you needed her to, just so you would stop being that disorganized. She did to organize you. That's
How'd that
terrible.
work out for everybody?
Terrible.
My wife unleashed her evil side because your incompetence let it out.
Yep.
There it is.
Hey, well, thank goodness, because I love the Devilettes, and the Devilettes have absolutely made my job easier over the years. They've classed the joint up. Come on. They've absolutely classed the joint up.
Oh,
Amen.
100%.
And Doug loved the Devilettes too. Doug loved
did.
everybody anyway, but he really loved the Devilettes. He thought that was a great shtick to have the girls come out there, and they had a lot of fun with him over the years too.
Oh yeah,
they had a lot of fun with Doug over the
It was
years.
great. Yeah, it was a lot of good times.
And it'll be more good times hopefully in the future.
Yes, it is.
For sure.
So I just want to make sure to reiterate this every hour on the hour. The convention is going to go on, and it's going to go on as best and as close to the original vision as we can possibly make it. Period. End of story. Doug. Everybody said the convention never made any money. If I have to help fund it, it's going to happen. So
we'll make sure
yeah,
that's
we don't
we'll make
worry
sure that's
about it.
taken care of.
So I'm just
fine.
saying, everybody, I've gotten messages and comments. I'm just telling everybody right now, we are going to, David and Mike and I have talked about this, and it is going to go on, and it's going to go on in the spirit and in the manner that Doug would have wanted it to happen.
Mhm.
Yeah,
absolutely, yes.
Sure.
And I'll say
we're
that
not gonna lose
over
that
and
feel.
over and over again. Until
We
people
honestly
believe
want
it.
this to be going on 10 years from now, and we want people to go to the con and say, wow, this is how the con used to be back in 2014. And we want that's exactly the feel we want. We want them to say, wow, this con hasn't changed very much. Nope, it hasn't. It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed hardly at all. It's going to be the same thing every year. And
Thank you, Mike.
That's what we want. We want that. We want that feel. And because Doug, he gave a special. There was just something about Doug being there that just made it special. Because for all his crazy idiosyncrasies that used to drive us all crazy, David.
His fucking
Eric and
website, man. The website was like, oh my god.
Okay,
Well,
not
David's
all
gonna-
things are going to stay the
David's
same.
gonna-
Okay.
I'm gonna change some things. David is gonna have us a new website this year. We are
There's-
changing a few things. Okay.
There might be some structural changes.
Yes,
yeah,
we're gonna have
Yes.
some structure.
Okay. Let me rephrase. So some of the infrastructure might change to make things a little more streamlined, but the general heart of it, this was very important to Doug as an endeavor, and I just want everybody to know that until my dying breath, I'm going to make sure that it follows what he wanted it to be, because it's important to me that it move forward the way he had.
Yes, I agree with that.
With a better website and better shirt
We'll
sale
support you.
policies and whatever. But so,
All right.
Well,
And we will sell. We'll sell
promise-
T-shirts later. Yeah,
I
we'll
promise
sell more
to do
t-shirts.
my part to make sure at least once every convention, Gary shakes his head and goes, "God damn it, Skeeter!"
That's easy.
are you gonna tell that story, or you want me to tell that story?
Are you promising that you're only going to have that happen once? Because it happens
Yes,
all
please.
the time. So
You gave me a heart attack.
Normally it's once a day at least.
okay,
but
yeah.
Are you gonna tell the story? Tell the story, Skeeter.
Go ahead.
No, you tell it, because
You
you
don't
told
even
it.
remember the story, do you?
Oh no, I remember exactly what happened. It scared the shit out of me.
So
Pardon
this
my
is
French.
so this is the first convention where my kids have gotten to go, and my 18-year-old daughter is, she's sort of cosplaying as some whatever, I don't know. so she's at some tables and is trying on some earrings and doing all this stuff, and a convention goer, I assume trying to be helpful, decides to take it upon himself to pet her.
Ha! Uh-oh.
And I don't find out about this until quite a bit later, and I reacted exactly the way everybody thinks I did. And I am cruising the main floor like a shark in shallow water. And Gary asked me, well, what's going on? So I explained this to him. And he just gets pale. And,
What?
And goes into crisis mode and says, please let me handle this. Please let me handle this. Please
I was
let me
like,
handle this.
just let me take care of this. Please don't do what I know what you want to
I
do.
start wandering around the whole hotel trying to figure this out. And finally, at the end of the night, I've got a bead. I've got a clue. I am going to follow this. I'm going to figure out what's going on. And I am stalking down the long hallway. And there's Gary at the far end coming at me. And he's already upset. And
Cut him off.
as I get closer, he's like, okay, hold on, hold on. And gets me in this bear hug and won't let me go. And oh my God. Yeah, no, I kept trying to tell him everything's cool. I'm gonna be fine. There's not gonna be any trouble.
Yeah, and so I said, yeah, Skeeter, your mouth is saying everything's going to be fine, everything's gonna be cool, whatever. Tell your face. Your face does not say that, okay?
It's just my face, man. And
Okay,
I've got all the porcupine quills coming out my back. I can't like retract them yet. So no, everything got handled perfectly fine. Everything, like I was telling everybody before, the convention ran perfectly smooth. There was some snags with the hotel and the whole double booking, but that had nothing to do with you guys, and I thought it all ran great. Whatever you guys did this year worked awesome. Very proud of you guys picking up the batons.
No, you did what Doug would have wanted you to do to run it the way he would want it run, which is what I know you guys are planning on doing in the future, and it's in good hands. I'm proud to be part of it, and I'm proud to be part of the show tonight, and to let you guys know how much it mattered to everybody. I know I didn't try to pipe up that much. I got a chance to talk, but show changed my life, and knowing it's in you guys' hands is going to be the way it's always been. Honestly, is the best living memorial you can have to a man, and the best ongoing thing you could possibly do. And the three of you guys are making a big difference to a lot of people and continuing what he did for us all. And that matters a lot. So thank you guys a lot. And
well, it matters a lot. Matters a lot to
about,
us too. So that's
I want to say something about Zach. Doug, Doug had this uncanny way of picking out people, and he immediately takes a liking to some people just for some weird reason. And one of the people was Zach. And so Zach was there about his second year, and he said, "You're on staff now, and you're never going to be a special guest because you're on staff."
Yep.
And we joke about that all the time. But Zach is considered to be on staff because Doug just liked him, and he would show up early and help us pick up stuff. And so he was part of the family. So, and that's what Doug did. He made you part of the family when he judged that, and Doug had always told me one thing. I guess I've told Gary and Dave this before, but I'd always complain that we didn't have enough people helping us out. We always needed more help. And why don't we get volunteers? Volunteers are cheap. You get them, you just pay them a badge and they show up, this, that. He always resisted that. And when he told me, he says, I want this con to be about family. So that's why your brother works here. That's why my son works here. And Gary, he said, someday, your grandkids are going to work here. My grandkids will work here. And he was real serious about that. He didn't want strangers at the con running the con. He wanted to be family. He considered Zach family. Zach is family. And so he only wanted people working at the con that were family. And that was me and Gary and our kids, and now that I look back on it, you had a point, man. It makes sense. You want people you can trust, doing something like that. And that's what he wanted. He wanted this to not be a commercial enterprise. He wanted to be something we passed on down to our kids and our grandkids.
And I want
think
to, I want to shout out to Zach too, because Zach was one of the people who, at great cost of time and energy and everything else, came to see Doug closer to the end. And it was important to Doug, and it was important to Zach, and it meant a lot to me that you took time out of your day to do that.
No, it was a no-brainer. But thanks, Gary. But it was a no-brainer. It was important to me. So
and Zach was also Doug really respected people like Zach who could write, and this is a big joke with your dad, Dave. We used to talk about this all the time, that he just wasn't a good writer. Okay. And so he got me early on. He said, you're going to have to do the bio things in the program, because I don't know what to do. He was just cutting and pasting from Wikipedia. He didn't know. And he's like, well, you have an English degree. That's something you do. You do that. And he always would poo-poo people with college education, or that guy just thinks he's so smart and this, that. But he did respect you if you knew what you're doing. And he really had a respect for people that could write their own adventures and write D&D stuff. And he always, had respect for people like Zach or Jeff or Ben, people that wrote their own adventures, and Jim. And that's something you'll probably never know, because he may probably never told that to you to your face. But that was really important to him, that you could do something that he couldn't do. And he realized that. He thought that was very impressive when people could, write their own adventures and create their own D&D modules and their own stuff. And he ran great adventures. I thought he had some incredible ideas that I really wish we could have written down and published at some point. But everything was always in his head, because he just wasn't good at writing it down. But it really impressed him when people could write stuff down and do what you guys did. And even though he never told you that, believe me, he would talk about that a lot. He talked about it all the time.
For my own part, I think that one of the best things that we can continue to do to honor his memory is continue to go to the con every year and run a bunch of games, right? Play games and and have fun. And
be simple.
I think that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm coming back.
I'll throw something out real quick, right? North Texas is a show that doesn't need to advertise. North Texas is a show that, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
so North Texas is a show that shouldn't advertise. North Texas is special. North Texas is different. One of the things I always hear from folks who've been to almost all of them is that Gary Con is very different from what Gary Con started as. But one of the things that's so important about North Texas is that North Texas has had a very firm hand guiding it, a very firm hand making sure that it hasn't deviated from its purpose, that it hasn't deviated from what it's supposed to be, and that North Texas has stayed true to Doug's original vision. This doesn't mean that it hasn't gotten better. This doesn't mean that it doesn't get tweaked and fixed in incremental corrections, but there's always been a good hand on steering it. And North Texas grows not through advertisement, not through, solicitations. North Texas grows through word of mouth. And that's the way it should grow. It's taken me years to sort of find a way to get it onto my schedule and get down to North Texas. But my very first time hearing about North Texas, it was from a conversation with Bill and Jeff and Mark, where they just talked about how the show was like none other, that it was special and unique, and that has to be preserved. And I think, that is the thing you have to guard against more than anything else. And I feel very good about the stewardship of the show with Mike and Gary and particularly David, right? You're going to be the voice of your father, David. And all three of you have a good hand on this. And if any of you decide to lose your minds and do something batshit crazy, the others are going to beat you with sticks and put you back on the right path and make sure it goes the way it's supposed to.
Why is everybody looking at me?
Yeah, you're the most likely to be that person.
Funny, it wasn't Gary or Dave we thought about when he said that.
Damn it.
Yeah, that's right.
I am going to remain respectfully silent.
Yeah, like you ever done that before.
Yeah.
No, I
Well, I'm
think.
gonna say goodnight, gentlemen.
All right.
Good night, buddy.
10:30 here on the East Coast.
I gotta head out too.
Jeff,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming.
All right.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank
the
you guys
invite.
for doing this for those of us who were unable to attend the funeral and the services.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, totally, man.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
I think we're gonna wrap it up. It's been 2.5 hours. I think we've talked a lot. I think we got the intent out there. I am not a fan of YouTube and not a fan of really, doing this kind of shit. But I think this is something that needs to be preserved. And if this is something that can be attached to some North Texas archives, I would be happy to do whatever I can to send this off or help or do anything. I got a bunch of messages as we were doing all this stuff. People saying thank you for, to me, thank you for setting this up. I am the smallest, tiniest piece of all of this. This is all Doug. This is all David and Gary and Mike. This is me just putting you guys on a screen. This is all your guys' legacy. So thank you very much.
No, it matters. Thanks a lot, you guys.
And
thanks
thanks,
a lot.
everybody.
Can I add something real quick? What we're
No,
gonna also-
shut your ass.
Yes. If you're in the DFW area this weekend, we're gonna have a memorial for Doug up at the warehouse Friday and Saturday. If you need more information, contact me through Facebook. I'll let you know where it's at. But we already have quite a few people showing up.
And there's Bad Mike the Tech Wizard.
Yeah,
There's Bad Mike the Techie.
You might have to get in contact with me or Gary because
Yeah,
Mike
get in
sucks
touch
at
with
internet.
either
Yeah,
one
so
of
just-
us, and we'll give you directions or whatever.
Directions, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And woohoo 2022 North Texas Con.
Woohoo 2020.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Absolutely.
We'll see you guys there.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you a lot. You
Yeah.
Green?
My name is Skeeter Green. My buddy Zach Glazer. This has been
Goddammit.
Goddammit Zach. Thank you.